Okay, good morning, all of you. Yeah, so good morning, everyone. So we have to continue with where we left in the last class. So towards the end of the last session, if I remember correctly, I was talking about some portions of geomorphology. So geomorphology, a few portions we were discussing. The last topic that we discussed was the discussion on delta formation. So we have discussed a lot of fluvial landforms. Fluvial landforms are the landforms which are created by the action of river systems. So we have discussed a lot of fluvial landforms, and one of the last one that we have discussed was the formation of a delta, which is mainly a depositional feature which is created by the river system at the end stage of its life. So today we have to start with another portion. So to give you an idea, we have discussed basics of climatology in our initial classes, the basics of climate, atmosphere, what are the major wind systems, how cyclones are created, how wind systems are created, etc. We have discussed that in a brief manner. After climatology, we have discussed a few portions of geomorphology, in which we have discussed several things which are related to landform formation. Okay, faulting, okay, Rift Valley, Block Mountains, etc. We have discussed. So this was the discussion coming under geomorphology. We have even discussed earthquakes, volcanism, and fluvial landforms, etc. We have discussed under geomorphology. Now, in today's session, we have to start with oceanography. So, as the name itself is suggesting, basically it is the study of oceans. Okay, it is a study of oceans is what we call as a oceanography. So when it comes to oceanography, there are three kinds of ocean movements that we have to study. So there are mainly three kinds of ocean movements. The first kind of ocean movement is what we call as a ocean waves. So ocean waves are the first kind of ocean movements. The second one that we have to look onto it is the ocean tides. Ocean tides. And third one, it is the ocean currents. So there are three kinds of ocean movements that we have to study when it comes to oceanography: ocean waves, ocean tides, and ocean currents. So we can look on to one by one. Just to So first one, waves. So the first kind of ocean movement, waves. The actual motion of water beneath the waves is circular. Winds provide energy to the waves and energy is released onto the shores. So basically, the waves which can be seen in the coastal region, the waves are the result of wind systems operating in the coastal region. The wind systems will be transferring some amount of energy to the top surface layer, and this energy is transported in the form of waves. So basically, what we can see as waves on the surface is energy in transit, energy in motion. ആ എനർജിയുടെ മൂവ്മെന്റിനാണ് നമ്മൾ വേവ്സ് ആയിട്ട് കാണുന്നത്. And why the waves are created? They are most often generated because of the wind system. But mind you, not all waves could be the result of wind system. For example, a tsunami wave is most often the result of an underwater earthquake. So most of the sea waves that we observe in the coastal region are the result of wind system. But the destructive waves such as tsunami are most often the result of an underwater earthquake. Now, in the case of a wave, the actual motion of water beneath the waves is circular. So that's a pretty important point. So if you're looking onto the movement of wave, so this is basically, I'm just trying to explain the movement, how the particles are moving in the case of a wave action. So you can see that you can look onto the yellow colored particles. A yellow colored particles in Oka. So as the wave is passing through the surface of the ocean, you can see that the yellow colored particles are basically having a circular motion only. So circular motion is the motion which is undertaken by the water particles as the wave is passing through one particular location. So that point is also basically important. About our particles basically most often. Most often what happens is that as the wave is passing through the location, the particles of a particular region, it will be undergoing a circular motion. So you can note this particular points, what is given in the slide. You can give a heading waves, and you can note these 2 points. ക്ലാസ് നോട്ടിൽ നോട്ട് ചെയ്യാം ആ 2 പോയിന്റ്. ഓക്കെ, എല്ലാവരും ഫിനിഷ്ഡ് ആയോ? Okay, good. So moving on. So first one was the formation of ocean waves, how ocean waves are generated. Okay, complete. Okay, complete. Okay. So next one. So this is basically, I'm trying to explain what will be happening when an ocean wave is passing through one particular location. So this is a GIF which is trying to explain the motion of ocean waves happening through a location. Okay, so you can see that if at all a bird is actually lying on a part of the ocean surface, as the wave is passing through the region, basically the bird should be having a circular motion only most often. Okay. നമ്മുടെ നേച്ചറിൽ ഇത്രയും സിമ്പിൾ ഒന്നും അല്ല, ഇതിനേക്കാളത്തൂടെ കോംപ്ലിക്കേറ്റഡ് ഒക്കെയാണ്. ഇതേപോലെ കിളി വന്നിരുന്നു കഴിഞ്ഞാൽ ഇതേപോലെ തന്നെ പോകണം നിർബന്ധമൊന്നുമില്ല. കാര്യം ഓഷൻ വേവ് മാത്രമൊന്നും അല്ല ഓഷൻ സർഫസിലെ മൂവ്മെന്റ് എന്ന് പറയുന്നത്, അതിൻ്റെ കൂടെ കറന്റ്സ് ഉണ്ട്, ടൈഡ്സിന്റെ എഫക്റ്റ് ഉണ്ട്. ഇതെല്ലാം കൂടെ ആവുമ്പോഴത്തേക്കും ഒരു കോംപ്ലിക്കേറ്റഡ് ആയിട്ടുള്ള സിനാരിയോ ആവേണ്ട ചാൻസ് ഉണ്ട്. ബട്ട് ഐഡിയലി ഓർ തിയററ്റിക്കലി ദിസ് ഇസ് ഹൗ തിങ്സ് ഷുഡ് ബി ഹാപ്പനിങ്. സോ നെക്സ്റ്റ് വൺ, ടൈഡ്സ്, ഓഷൻ ടൈഡ്സ്. It is the periodic rise and fall in the level of water in oceans and seas. So the periodic rise and fall in the sea level water, okay, or sea water level is what we call as an ocean tide. So it is something, for example, this is the average sea level of a location. And sometimes the sea water will be rising, and this is what we call as a high tide line. So the rise of seawater due to gravitational interactions is what we call as a high tide line. And the fall of seawater due to gravitational interactions is what we call as a low tide line. So basically, high tide and low tide are the highest as well as the lowest water levels which will be recorded in that particular region of the sea because of the gravitational interactions. Here I am using the word gravitational interactions because of the fact that most often the pattern of high tide as well as low tide, this is created by the gravitational interactions associated with the moon as well as the sun. So the moon as well as the sun, it will be exerting gravitational force, and this will be resulting in a water being bulging towards that particular location, resulting in a high tide condition. And the other portions from which water is moving towards the high tide line, here we will be having low tide conditions. So basically, we can just assume a scenario. This is a bit complicated one. I'm not going to dwell too deep into the formation of tides, but just to give you a brief idea only. Now, to avoid confusion, you can just think about moon as well as the earth. So this is the average water level which we are expecting if there is no gravitational interaction from the moon. So without gravitational interaction from the moon, this is the average sea level that we are expecting. Now imagine the moon is standing over here. The moon is exerting gravitational force. So because of the gravitational pull of the moon, the water will be gradually starting to bulge towards that particular direction, thereby creating a high tide line. At the same time, the water in the surrounding region, so this is the direction from which water is moving towards the high tide bulge. So these locations you will be having low tide condition as well. So that's the reason why I can say that when you're having gravitational interactions, you'll be having high tide bulge happening in one location, and low tide bulges will be happening in different parts of the earth. So this is how basically the tides are produced. So So the rise of seawater due to gravitational interactions is what we call as high tide, and the fall of seawater due to gravitational interactions is what we call as a low tide. The difference between high tide and low tide is what we call as a tidal range. Say for example, if you're going to say for example Kovala Beach, suppose during high tide, the value is something like the difference between high tide and low tide is say for example 1 meter. 1 meter ആണ് difference എന്ന് assume ചെയ്യുക. Then that 1 meter will be the tidal range of that particular location. Okay, so the difference between high tide and low tide is what we call as a tidal range. Bay of Fundy in Canada. So there's a place called as Bay of Fundy in Canada. This is recording the highest tidal range of the world. So Bay of Fundy, Canada has a peculiarity as recording one of the highest tidal range in the world. It has a tidal range of close to 16 meter. 16 meter ആണ് അവിടുത്തെ tidal range എന്ന് പറയുന്നത്. So this is a picture of Bay of Fundy, and you can see both the photographs. The photographs are taken at a time gap of close to something like 6 hours. 6 മണിക്കൂർ ഗ്യാപ്പിൽ എടുത്തേക്കുന്ന ഫോട്ടോ ആണ്. In the topmost region, this is the picture of the low tide. And in the lowermost region, this is a picture of the high tide. So that's the picture of the high tide region. So you can see the difference. The first one is basically you're having no water at all, and there is a humongous increase in water level during high tide condition. Why Bay of Fundy is experiencing relatively higher water level? That is something which will be needing much more discussion. Next, ebb. The time between high tide and the low tide when the water level is falling. So between high tide and low tide when the water level is constantly falling, this location or this time duration is what we call as the ebb. The time duration between high tide and low tide when the water level is rising, we call it as flow or flood. So first one, it is called as ebb, in which the water level is falling from the high tide to low tide condition. And the second one is what we call as flow or flood, in which the water level is rising from the time between the high tide and low tide, in which the water level is constantly rising. For first case, ebb എന്ന് പറയുന്നത് താഴോട്ട് പോകുന്നു, flow അല്ലെങ്കിൽ flood എന്ന് പറയുന്നത് rise ചെയ്യും. You can write the definition. You can write all the definition. Complete this slide. See, ഞാൻ പറയുന്നതിന്റെ ഇടയ്ക്ക് തന്നെ നിങ്ങൾ എഴുതിക്കൊണ്ടിരിക്കേണ്ട ആവശ്യമില്ല. അതിനുശേഷം ഞാൻ എഴുതാൻ സമയം തരും, because basically you have to listen properly. Then only you will understand the concept. Okay, so that's the reason why. Okay, the others can complete, because I know that most of you might not have been completed. Completing the notes is not the most important thing. I will be giving dedicate time for that. You need to understand the concept. That is more important. Draw that particular picture as average sea level, tidal range, high tide, low tide, etc. Is everyone done with or still writing? ആരെല്ലാം കംപ്ലീറ്റ് ചെയ്യാൻ ബാക്കി ഉണ്ടെങ്കിൽ ജസ്റ്റ് ഒന്ന് ചാറ്റിൽ ഒന്ന് പറഞ്ഞുതരാം. Everyone completed. Okay, completed. So people who are yet to complete. Okay, so that was some of the basic aspects of the tide formation. Okay, so the definition of high tide, low tide, tidal range, ebb, flow, or flood. So if this much is completed, okay. So you can add a sentence other than what is written in the slide. You can add one more sentence. Okay. Tides are the result of, not later, tides are the result of gravitational interactions. Gravitational interactions associated with the sun and the moon. Gravitational interactions associated with the sun and the moon. Associated with the sun and the moon. Next sentence. Next sentence. Moon controls the pattern of the tide. Moon controls the pattern of the tide. Moon controls the pattern of the tide. Since it is closer, since it is closer, since it is closer, since it is closer to the earth, since it is closer to the earth, since it is closer to the earth. Okay, but രണ്ട് ബോഡീസ് ഉണ്ടെങ്കിലും മൂണും സണ്ണും ഉണ്ടെങ്കിലും അതിനകത്ത് ഏറ്റവും മെയിൻലി ടൈഡ്സിനെ കൺട്രോൾ ചെയ്യുന്നതെന്ന് പറയുന്നത് it is the presence of the moon only, because moon is extremely closer to that of the earth compared to that of the sun. Though sun is pretty larger, extremely larger compared to that of the moon, this moon is extremely closer to the earth, and usually the pattern of the tides are usually controlled by the moon only. But രണ്ടും കൺട്രോൾ ചെയ്യാൻ പറ്റുമെങ്കിൽ മെയിൻലി കൺട്രോൾ ചെയ്ത moon ആണ് കൺട്രോൾ ചെയ്യുന്നത്. So this is also the picture of Bay of Fundy. So basically just imagine the extent of water which is rising in Bay of Fundy. About 16 meter is the tidal range. 6 മണിക്കൂർ കൊണ്ട് 16 മീറ്റർ ആണ് വെള്ളം മാറുന്നത്. ഒന്ന് ആലോചിച്ച് നോക്കിയാൽ അപ്പോൾ ഒരു മണിക്കൂറിൽ ഏകദേശം ഒരു 2.5 മീറ്റർ അത്രയൊക്കെയാണ് വെള്ളം ചേഞ്ച് ചെയ്യുന്നത്. ഇത് മാത്രമല്ല, ദിസ് ഇസ് എ ഫേമസ് ടൂറിസ്റ്റ് ഡെസ്റ്റിനേഷൻ. അപ്പൊ ഈ ആൾക്കാർ ലോറ്റേഡില് ഈ സമുദ്രം നമുക്ക് ഒരുപാട് കാണാൻ പറ്റും. അപ്പൊ ആൾക്കാർ ഇറങ്ങി നടന്ന ജസ്റ്റ് ഓഷൻ ഫ്ലോർ കാണാൻ വേണ്ടി ഇറങ്ങി നടക്കുകയൊക്കെ ചെയ്യും. ചിലപ്പോ ഹൈറ്റേഡ് തുടങ്ങുമ്പോഴത്തേക്കും നിങ്ങൾ നടന്ന് ഒരുപാട് എത്തിയിട്ടുണ്ടെങ്കിൽ നല്ല ബുദ്ധിമുട്ടായിരിക്കും. കാര്യം നിങ്ങൾ തിരിച്ചെത്തുമ്പോഴത്തേക്കും കാരണം വെള്ളം അങ്ങ് കൂടി വരും. So that's one of the problem. So this is a pretty famous tourist destination as well. Bay of Fundy in Canada. Next, so these are two phenomena which are often associated with the discussion on tides. ടൈഡ്സുമായിട്ട് ബന്ധപ്പെട്ട് നമ്മൾ പറയുന്ന രണ്ട് കാര്യങ്ങളാണ് ടൈഡൽ കറൻസും ടൈഡൽ ബോൾസും. അപ്പൊ നമുക്ക് ഓരോന്ന് നോക്കാം. So first one, tidal currents. They are formed when tides move between islands or into bays or estuaries. Okay, so basically they are formed when a tide move into islands. അപ്പൊ ഞാൻ ഒരു എക്സാമ്പിൾ കാണിച്ചു തരാം, അപ്പൊ നിങ്ങൾക്ക് മനസ്സിലാവും. ഇപ്പൊ രണ്ട് islands ഉണ്ട്, നിങ്ങൾ മുകളിൽ നിന്ന് നോക്കി കാണുവാണ്, you are considering the top view. So there are two islands that I am considering. So in between that particular region, a high tide bulge is entering towards that particular region. വെള്ളം കൂടി high tide ഇങ്ങോട്ട് ഈ രണ്ട് islandsന്റെ ഇടയിൽ കൂടെ എൻ്റർ ചെയ്യുവാണ്. So as the high tide is entering in between the islands, basically the water will be increasing its velocity. ഇപ്പൊ ഫിസിക്സിലെ വെഞ്ചുറി എഫക്ട് എന്നുള്ള ഒരു എഫക്ട് ഉണ്ട്, 11ാം ക്ലാസ്സിലൊക്കെ നിങ്ങൾ പഠിക്കുന്നതാണ്. ആ സെയിം പ്രിൻസിപ്പിൾ ആണ് ഇവിടെ അപ്ലൈ ചെയ്യുന്നത്. അപ്പൊ നമ്മൾ അത്രയും ഹയർ ലെവൽ സംഭവം ഒന്നും ഇപ്പൊ നമ്മൾ നോക്കി പോകേണ്ട കാര്യമൊന്നുമില്ല. വെഞ്ചുറി എഫക്ട് ഒന്നും അറിയില്ലെങ്കിലും കുഴപ്പമില്ല. ജസ്റ്റ് അണ്ടർസ്റ്റാൻഡ് ദിസ് മച്ച്. When a high tide water is entering in between the islands, the speed of the water will be increasing. Basically, the water will be flowing more like a river system. നമ്മൾ നോക്കിക്കഴിഞ്ഞാൽ ഒരു നദി ഒഴുകുന്നത് പോലെ ആയിരിക്കും നമ്മൾ അവിടെ കാണാൻ പോകുന്നത്. So such kind of a system is what we call as a tidal current. ഇതിനാണ് tidal current എന്ന് പറയുന്നത്. Okay, I will show one video so that you will be having clarity. ഞാൻ ആ വീഡിയോയുടെ ലിങ്ക് എടുത്ത് കാണിച്ചു തരാം, so that you will be able to see one tidal current. Yeah, I'll be posting it in the chat. Just give me 1 second. I'm just taking the link only. Yeah, you can go watch it and come back. Okay, I guess it's completed, right? Okay, so that's one of the strongest tidal currents that we have in the world. World തന്നെ ഏറ്റവും strongest ആയിട്ടുള്ള ഒരു tidal current ന്റെ video ആണ് just കണ്ടത്. So so this kind of movement is what we call as a tidal current, in which a tide is entering a water body, and basically this will be setting off water movement. Okay, so such kinds of movements are what we call as tidal currents. ഈ ടൈഡൽ കറൻസ് ഒക്കെ നമുക്ക് കേരളത്തിലും പലയിടത്ത് ഈ പൊഴി എന്നൊക്കെ പറഞ്ഞ സ്ഥലങ്ങളുണ്ട് കേരളത്തിൽ പലരും നിങ്ങൾ കേട്ടിട്ടുണ്ടോ എന്ന് അറിയത്തില്ല ഈ വാക്ക്. Basically a location in which you're having a water body connecting with the open ocean. For example, you'll be having one lake. For example, in Kollam we have the Ashtamudi Lake. So there is a location in which the Ashtamudi Lake as well as the Arabian Sea will be joining. Similarly, പാലപ്പുഴ പോയി കഴിഞ്ഞ് കഴിഞ്ഞാൽ തോട്ടപ്പള്ളി സ്പിൽവേ ആ പറയുന്ന ലൊക്കേഷനിൽ പോയി കഴിഞ്ഞാൽ നിങ്ങൾക്ക് ഇതേപോലെ കാണാൻ പറ്റും. You can see the tidal currents during high tide. Sometimes the water will be entering towards Ashtamudi Lake, and during low tide condition the water will be opposite, it will be flowing in the opposite direction. So basically the water will be moving in between that particular region during high tide and low tide condition. So next one, this is somewhat similar to tidal currents. They are large tidal waves formed when a tide enters a low-lying river. Here a steep wall of water will be moving upstream. Bars occur commonly in Amazon, Hooghly, Colorado, etc. So tidal bars are basically what happens is that, so imagine this is the ocean and this is the location from which a river system is entering. So I'm showing a river system and this is the part of the ocean. So river system is highlighted as well as the part of ocean is also highlighted. Now imagine a high tide line, this high tide bulge, as it is entering towards a river system. Sometimes this particular high tide bulge, it will be converted into a wave. So such kind of tidal wave which are created when a high tide is entering towards the river system is what we call as a tidal bar. A high tide condition ഒരു റിവർ സിസ്റ്റത്തിലേക്ക് എൻ്റർ ചെയ്യുകയാണെങ്കിൽ പലപ്പോഴും ഒരു വേവ് പോലെ ജനറേറ്റ് ചെയ്യാനുള്ള ചാൻസ് ഉണ്ട്. Such kinds of waves which are generated when a high tide is entering towards a low-lying river system is what we call as a tidal bore. ഇപ്പോൾ ടൈഡൽ ബോസ് ഇപ്പൊ എല്ലാ റിവർ സിസ്റ്റംസിലും ഒന്നും ഉണ്ടാവാറില്ല, കുറച്ച് റിവർ സിസ്റ്റംസിലൊക്കെയാണ് നമ്മൾ കാണുന്നത്. ഫോർ എക്സാമ്പിൾ ആമസോൺ റിവർ ദാറ്റ് വി ഹാവ് ഇൻ സൗത്ത് അമേരിക്ക, ഹൂഗ്ലി റിവർ സിസ്റ്റം which is operating near to Kolkata and all, then Colorado river system of USA. So these are few river systems which are famous for tidal bars. The strongest tidal bore in the world are associated with a river system in China called as the Qiantang River. So Qiantang River in China, this is said to be the one of the strongest tidal bores in the world. So, and this is an annual celebration in China. Usually എന്താ ചെയ്യുന്നതെന്ന് പറഞ്ഞാൽ അവര് ഈ സ്റ്റേജ് ഒക്കെ കെട്ടി ആൾക്കാര് ഈ ഫസ്റ്റ് വേവിനെ റിസീവ് ചെയ്യാൻ വേണ്ടി വലിയ സെലിബ്രേഷൻ ആണ് ചൈനയിൽ ഈ Qiantang റിവറിലെ ടൈഡൽ ബോസിനെ സെലിബ്രേറ്റ് ചെയ്യാൻ വേണ്ടിയിട്ട്. But what happened was that close to like 20-25 years ago, one tidal bore was so strong that it started to move through the galleries which are constructed in the nearby portion of the river system. So near to the river system, multiple galleries were constructed so that people can sit and watch the tidal bore as it is moving through the river system. So one tidal bore was so strong that it started to move through the galleries itself, and many people lost their lives. So this is one such video which happened pretty recently, again coming from the Qiantang River only. So I'll just share the video link. You can go watch it and come back. So you guys have watched the video, right? So basically, that's not a tsunami. That's not a tsunami. What you see is a result of a tidal wave. Okay, so a tide is resulting in a huge wave, and that has resulted in that particular thing only. So people are asking, is the cameraman aware of the wave? Yes, the usually this will be mentioned in advance. Usually, the people associated with the meteorological department, they'll be seeing like the tidal bursts could be happening in that particular day, in one particular day in which the tides are relatively strong. So it could be predicted in advance. So that's the reason why we are having such kinds of actions which are called as tidal bursts. Then why did people stand there? ഓക്കെ അവര് വിചാരിച്ച റിവറിൽ കൂടെ പോകുന്ന വിചാരിച്ച അവരുടെ സൈഡിൽ കൂടെ പോകുന്ന വിചാരിച്ചില്ല അത്രയ്ക്ക് സ്ട്രോങ് ആയിരിക്കും എന്ന് വിചാരിച്ചില്ല. They didn't expect that much intensity. Anyway, so why I showed that particular video, tides can be destructive as well. So നമ്മൾ പലപ്പോഴും ടൈഡ്സിനെ പറ്റി പറയുമ്പോൾ tides are not sometimes considered as destructive in nature, but tides could be destructive as well. You can note the slide, you can complete the slide, you can note down the things which are mentioned in the slide. Please don't talk in Malayalam as there are few non-Malus here. Okay. See, understand, most of the stuff I'm talking in English only, but once a while I'll be using Malayalam. You don't need to worry about it. Only once a while. Okay. That is just to say the things which are maybe local to Kerala or something like that. The classes are running in English only. Okay, complete the slide. So tidal currents and tidal bursts completed, right? Okay, good. So moving on, I have to discuss one thing. This is not that important from geography point of view, I mean from the exam point of view at least, but this is something which is often mentioned in the newspaper once in a while. So I'm going to discuss a phenomena called as a riptide. So there's a phenomena called as riptide, which is often happening in the beaches of different parts of our country. So what do we mean by riptide and what is the impact of the riptide? That's the next thing that we are going to discuss. To understand the impact of riptide, I will not be giving the class note of riptide. That is not that important. I'm just mentioning it over here so that, just to give you a clarity only. It is not that important from the examination point of view. But there is a terminology called as tide in this particular thing. But this has nothing to do with tidal interaction. Okay, so what do we mean by riptide? And we'll be looking on to that. So just look onto the screen. So basically, imagine that this is a coastal region. This is a beach. So you can imagine that this is a beach location. So this is the underwater part of the beach. And you imagine that there is an underwater sandbar. Sand is accumulating in the underwater region, and this is resulting in a kind of a barrier-like structure near to the ocean. Now imagine a sea wave is approaching towards the beach. So this is the water level, and a sea wave is approaching the coastal region. As the sea wave is approaching the coastal region, the wave will be initially reaching the beach, and after that you will be having the phenomena called as a backwash. Backwash means that the water is flowing back in the opposite direction. What you will be doing, you will be immersing your legs in the sand so that you will be having a stable structure. You will not be washed back into the sea. So such kind of scenario in which the water is flowing back into the sea, we call it as a backwash phenomena. So during backwash, when the water is flowing back in the opposite direction, what happens is that the water is often blocked by the sand particle. So the water will be blocked by the sand particle, and basically the water will be looking for an opening in the sandbar. And through the opening in the sandbar, all the water will be moving back in the opposite direction. So I'm just explaining the concept one more time. The incoming waves, it will be approaching the beach region. This is the incoming wave. After the incoming wave, after the wave is reaching the coastal region, the water will be flowing back towards the ocean. And when the water is flowing back towards the ocean, the sandbars will be creating an obstruction. And because of the obstruction, basically the water will be having a tendency to operate through the opening of the sandbar. Now, what is the problem? If you're a person who is standing somewhere over here, so I'm trying to explain how people are taken back into the ocean, how people are dying in the beach. What could be the mechanism which is leading to the death of the people in the beach? So if you're a person who is standing somewhere over here, then what happens is that because of this riptide phenomena, which is a case in which the water is flowing back into the ocean, this riptide could be capturing you and you will be taken back into the open ocean. So that is the reason why people who are standing over here, they could be taken into the interior parts of the ocean. So such kind of a phenomenon is what we call as a riptide. Now, by seeing this particular mechanism, you have understood one thing. This has nothing to do with the tidal interaction. Though it is called as a riptide, this has nothing to do with the tidal interaction. This is basically a scenario which will be happening after a normal sea wave. Riptide. The newsly around the reason why it was in the news was because the fact that many people in Goan beaches lost their lives because of the riptide phenomena. So many people who were, Goa is a famous tourist destination. People will be going into the Goa beaches and all. So few people who were standing at the beach of the Goa, they were taken into the sea by this riptide phenomena. So such kind of phenomena is what we call as riptides. So basically, this is one example. This is a picture of riptide happening in the ocean. This is an actual picture of a riptide happening in the sea. So you can basically see that this much portion, you can see that the water is moving back into the open ocean. So if you're a person who is standing somewhere over here, there's a great chance that you'll be taken back into the sea. And just to give you an idea of the size of this thing, you can see a flag which is pushed off, which is actually put on that particular region. So you'll be getting a clarity of the size of the water which is moving back into the ocean. So such kinds of phenomena is what we call as a riptide. Recently, the government of Goa and ISRO have decided to study the riptide phenomena as to why the riptides are happening in a frequent manner in Goa and all. It is not confined to Goa alone. It is observed in different parts around the world. But it has been recently observed in Goa, and since Goa is famous, a tourist destination, a famous beach region in the country, that's the reason why it was in the news. Riptide. Okay. So we have discussed a number of phenomena. We have discussed the tidal currents. We have discussed the tidal bores. And after that, we have also discussed the riptides as well. So this was were the things that we have discussed so far. Now we can look on to a few major underwater features of the ocean. So some of the major underwater features of the ocean we will be discussing first of all. Okay. So first one, continental shelf. It is the shallowest part of the ocean, having gentle slope of less than 1 degree, and the width varies considerably. So first of all, you can draw this picture so that different areas will be having a clarity. You can draw this picture. Continental shelf, continental slope, deep sea plain, mid-oceanic ridge, as well as trench. See, I haven't discussed anything. You can just first of all draw the picture. I will be discussing the meaning of all these terminology. എന്താണ് ഷെൽഫ്, എന്താണ് സ്ലോപ്പ്, all these things we'll be discussing. First of all, complete the picture. എല്ലാവരും വരച്ചു കഴിഞ്ഞോ? Just let me know if everyone is completed. Okay. So all of you are done with. Now we can look on to as to what do we mean by all of these things. So first one is the continental shelf. So basically one thing, I hope you are understood this by now. So what we have drawn over here, this is basically the ocean floor only. Ocean floor in the portions are ocean floor multiple features are. So what we are drawing over here are the different features which can be seen underwater. So in the underwater region, underwater region, the shallowest parts of the ocean, these regions are what we call as a continental shelf region. So continental shelf are one of the shallowest regions of the ocean floor. And after that, you will be having a relatively steeper location, which we call as a continental slope region. But continental shelf, first of all, continental shelf in just so I mentioned that this is one of the shallowest regions that we have under the ocean floor. And this continental shelf has a peculiar property. So basically, near to the continent, in the ocean region, you'll be having continental shelf. For example, in the Arabian Sea, we have the Arabian Sea continental shelf. So this is the Arabian Sea continental shelf surrounding India. And this is the Bay of Bengal continental shelf surrounding India. So you'll be having continental shelves in the ocean or water bodies surrounding the land masses. But if you're looking onto the extent of this continental shelf region, we observe that the width varies considerably. I will give an example. For example, the Arctic shelf of Russia. Towards the northern side of Russia, we have the Arctic shelf, the Siberian, the shelf near to the shelf which is near to Russia. This is one of the widest of the world, having a width of close to 1,500 kilometers. But if you go to the western part of Chile, for example, the western coast of South America, the continental shelf is almost absent. So this is one peculiar property in which the width of the continental shelf varies considerably. Okay, the width of the continental shelf varies considerably. There are locations in which it is extremely wider in nature, and there are locations in which it is extremely smaller in nature as well. Okay, so you can note this particular point. You can give a heading, continental shelf. You can give a heading, continental shelf. And you can start writing. It is they are the shallowest parts of the ocean. Shallowest parts of the ocean. Gentle slope of less than 1 degree. Gentle slope of less than 1 degree. Gentle slope of less than 1 degree. Next point, width varies considerably. Width varies considerably. You can add a point. Sentence but before writing that last point, you can add one more point, which is not mentioned in the slide. You can add one point. For example, the Arctic shelf. The Arctic shelf of Russia, the Arctic shelf of Russia, is one of the widest, is one of the widest, is one of the widest in the world, is one of the widest in the world. In the bracket, right? Width of 1,500 kilometer. Width of 1,500 kilometer. Width of 1,500 kilometer. Bracket closed. Bracket closed. Whereas the west coast of South America, whereas the west coast of South America, whereas the west coast of South America, whereas the west coast of South America has a narrow continental shelf, has a narrow continental shelf. Has a narrow continental shelf. You can write the last point as well. It ends at the shelf break or the continental break. It ends at the shelf break or the continental break. It ends at the shelf break or the continental break. So you can just mark the continental break in the picture that you have drawn. Our picture our continental shelf in the end region. This tip is what we call as a shelf break, also called as a continental break. So you can mark that in the picture. That location is what we call as a shelf break, also called as a continental break. So that was the discussion on continental shelf. Okay, continental shelf in a particular discussions are next one is the continental slope. So continental slope also we have drawn the picture. The steep sloping region, വളരെ steep ആയിട്ടുള്ള ലൊക്കേഷൻസിനാണ് നമ്മൾ continental slope എന്ന് പറയുന്നത്. So beyond the continental break, beyond the shelf break region, you can see that basically the ocean floor is actually plunging towards the ocean floor. It is having a steep sloping structure. So such locations are what we call as a continental slope, in which the slope varies from 2 to 5 degrees and the depth varies from almost 200 to up to 3 kilometers. So this is the variation of depth in the continental slope region. You can note the points. Slide കാര്യങ്ങൾ നോട്ട് ചെയ്യാം. So that was about continental slope. Okay. See, why are we discussing all these relief features, all the major features underwater? So basically, back in the day, what we used to believe was that most of the ocean floor was thought to be relatively flat back in the day. So this was a belief in the in the early part of 20th century and all. Most of the geographers around the world, they believed that the ocean floor was extremely flat. And it was in 1950s only that people have started to understand that just like what we see in the land region, the mountains, the plateaus, almost all the kinds of landforms that we can see in the land region, similar to that, we can see the similar features in the underwater region as well. Similar features can be seen underwater as well. So this has been a major breakthrough. ഇൻഫാക്ട് പറയാനാണെങ്കിൽ നമ്മളെ ചന്ദ്രന്റെ പ്രതലം ഈ പറയുന്ന ഓഷൻ ഫ്ലോർ മാപ്പ് ചെയ്യുന്നതിന് മുമ്പായിട്ട് നമ്മൾ ചന്ദ്രന്റെ പ്രതലം നമ്മൾ ഫുള്ള് മാപ്പ് ചെയ്ത. Okay, we knew very little about the ocean floor, and that's the reason why the discussion of the ocean floor is extremely important. Third one, deep sea plain, also called as the abyssal plain. So we have discussed the continental shelf region, we have discussed the continental slope region, and after that we enter the deep sea plain. So deep sea plain, these are extremely gentle sloping region areas on the ocean floor, one of the flattest and smoothest regions of the world. So these are extremely flat and smooth regions that we have under the ocean floor. And this region is covered in large amount of clay and silt particle. So clay particle, silt particle, different kinds of particles are dominating the deep sea plain. So the gentle sloping areas on the ocean floor are what we call as a deep sea plain. Okay, so you can write the definition. Deep sea plain, also called as the abyssal plain. These are gentle sloping areas on the ocean floor. Gentle sloping areas on the ocean floor. One of the flattest and smoothest regions of the world. One of the flattest and smoothest regions of the world. Covered with clay and silt. Covered with clay and silt. Covered with clay and silt. Okay, so that was about deep sea plain. Next one, fourth region. It is not the third one. Fourth region. Ocean deeps are also called as the ocean trench. So you might have heard of the terminology ocean trench before. Ocean trench എന്നുള്ള വാക്ക് നിങ്ങൾ കേട്ടിട്ടുണ്ടായിരിക്കും. The ocean trenches are one of the deepest parts of the ocean. They are one of the deepest parts of the ocean, and they are often having steep sides and steep-sided and narrow condition. And they are often associated with volcanism and strong earthquakes. So you might have heard of deep ocean trenches before, at least. Some of you might have heard of the Mariana Trench before. Okay, എല്ലാ trenches ഒന്നും കേട്ടിട്ടില്ലെങ്കിലും കുറച്ച് പേരെങ്കിലും Mariana Trench-നെ പറ്റിയെങ്കിലും കേട്ടിട്ടുണ്ടായിരിക്കും. Okay, so this is the Mariana Trench. So basically such kinds of region, the trench regions are the extremely deeper and narrow regions which can be seen under the ocean floor. And this region could be sometimes having volcanic activity as well. And sometimes this region is also associated with strong earthquake. So volcanism as well as earthquakes are two common phenomena which are often associated with the trench region. For example, the deepest trench that we have in the world is Mariana Trench, which is almost 11 kilometers deep. Almost 11 kilometers deep is the case of Mariana Trench. Mariana Trench എന്ന് പറയുന്നത് this is actually one of the deepest locations that we have in the ocean floor. Mariana Trenchന്റെ ഏറ്റവും deepest location ആണ് Challenger Deep എന്ന് ഇവിടെ വരച്ച് കാണിച്ചിരിക്കുന്ന സ്ഥലം. ഏറ്റവും deepest location ആണ് Challenger Deep എന്ന് പറയുന്നത്. ഒരു ബ്രിട്ടീഷ് സർവേയർ ഷിപ്പ് ഉണ്ടായിരുന്നു HMS Challenger, and this location is named after that particular British surveyor ship only, HMS Challenger. So that is the case of a trench region. You can write the definition: ocean deeps or ocean trenches, deepest parts of the ocean, steep-sided and narrow, associated with volcanism and strong earthquakes. Associated with volcanism and strong earthquakes. Okay, so that was some of the important underwater features. Then mid-ocean ridges, also called as a moor system. So we have discussed about four major features so far: continental shelf region, continental slope region, after that the deep sea plain, and the fourth one was a deep ocean trenches. Major features we are discussing. Right now we can look on to some minor underwater features. The first one is called as a mid-oceanic ridge. So mid-oceanic ridge, two chains of mountains separated by a large depression. It is what we call as a mid-oceanic ridge. So the picture will be looking something like this. If you will be having two parallel mountain chains, random mountain chains, and this will be separated by a central depression. A large depression will be observed right in the middle. And from this region, most often lava could be coming towards the surface. So this is also a region which is associated with volcanism as well. So two chains of mountains separated by a large depression is what we call as a Moore system, and it could be having volcanism as well. ഇങ്ങനെയുള്ള ലൊക്കേഷൻസിനാണ് മോർ സിസ്റ്റംസ് എന്ന് പറയുന്നത്. നിങ്ങൾ ഈ പിക്ചറിൽ കാണുന്നത് മോർ സിസ്റ്റംസ് ആണ്. ഇത് അണ്ടർ വാട്ടർ റീജിയനിലാണ്, ഓഷന്റെ അടിയിലാണ്, നമുക്ക് സർഫസിൽ കാണാൻ പറ്റുന്ന ഫീച്ചർ അല്ല ഇത്. So basically magma, lava, etc. could be coming towards the surface. Large amount of gases are coming from the Moore system. So this is the Moore system. ഈ കാണുന്നത് ഈ മോർ സിസ്റ്റത്തിന്റെ നടുക്കുള്ള ആ ഡിപ്രഷൻ ആണ് കാണിച്ചിരിക്കുന്നത്. ഇവിടുന്ന് പലപ്പോഴും ലാവയൊക്കെ സർഫസിലോട്ട് വരാനുള്ള സാധ്യതയും നമ്മൾ കാണുന്നുണ്ട്. So complete the definition, mid-oceanic ridges. And if you have written the definition, you can draw this picture. That is about mid-oceanic ridges. Moore systems in the picture ആണ് നമ്മൾ വരച്ചത്. Then after Moore systems, next one, a sea mount. They are mountains from the sea floor that does not reach the surface of the ocean. They are volcanic in origin. So sometimes what happens is that you could be having mountains which are coming from the bottom of the ocean. Such kinds of underwater mountains are what we call as a sea mount. So the sea mount, the top of the mountain will be below the water level only. If it is exposing above the water level, we call it as an island. അപ്പോഴാണ് നമ്മൾ അതിനെ island എന്ന് പറയുന്നത്. But the top of the mountain will be below the it will be below the water level. So such kinds of an underwater mountain is what we call as a sea mount. ഇതിനെയാണ് sea mounts എന്ന് പറയുന്നത്. So you can write the definition: sea mount. They are mountains from the sea floor that does not reach the surface of the ocean. That does not reach the surface of the ocean. They are volcanic in origin. They are often volcanic in origin. So you can draw a picture. So they are often volcanic in origin. The volcanic eruption which might be happening in that location, this will be resulting in the solidification or creation of an underwater volcano. So basically an underwater volcano only. Seamount. They are called as seamount. Is it done? Is it completed? Okay. So that was a seamount. So that was a picture of a seamount. Next one, a submarine canyon. They're deep valleys which cut across the continental shelves and the slopes region. They are often found at the river mouths. So the deep, okay, so the deep valleys which cut across the deep valleys which are cut across the continental shelves and the slopes, they are called as a submarine canyon. So I was getting a couple of doubts regarding the last one. How it is formed? Okay, so you guys were asking about the formation of the seamount. So the formation is pretty much simple. Only seamounts in the formation are simple. Now imagine this location is having volcanic eruption. So volcanic eruption, large amount of lava will be accumulating and this will be eventually converted into a volcano. So volcanic eruption, underwater volcanic eruption sometimes can result in an underwater volcano, and such kinds of underwater volcanoes are what we call as a seamount region. Next one, submarine canyon. So the picture of submarine canyon is shown in this particular picture itself. So basically, a submarine canyon is a large canyon. It is a deep canyon or valley which is cutting across the continental shelf region as well as the continental slope region. A continental shelf continental shelf region first of all. So you can see the continental shelf region as well as the continental slope region. So this is the continental shelf and this is the continental slope. So you can see that a valley which is cutting across the continental shelf and the slope region is what we call as a submarine canyon. And most of the submarine canyons are usually found at the river mouth. River vanu discharge in the locations palappadum nammal submarine canyons കാണുന്നത്. That is the location in which most of the canyons are usually found out. Why are they called minor features? The other ones that we have discussed are relatively bigger. Okay, the ones which I call as major features, the continental shelf region, the continental slope region, deep sea plain, these are much bigger in nature compared to Mars systems, canyons, etc. and all. That's the reason why these are called as the minor features. The other ones are called as the major features. So you can write the definition of a submarine canyon. There are deep valleys. There are deep valleys which cut across the continental shelves. There are deep valleys which cut across the continental shelves and slopes. Which cut across the continental shelf and the slopes. They are often found at river mouths. They are often found at river mouths. Next one, a guyot. So this is a peculiar kind of formation, a very rare formation. So a flat-topped seamount is what we call as a guyot. So this was the picture of a seamount, you might remember. An underwater mountain, an underwater volcano, etc. is what we call as a seamount. Similarly, flat-topped seamounts, the topmost region is almost completely chopped off. Such kind of formations are what we call as a guyot. Flat-topped seamounts are what we call as a guyot. The formation is a pretty complicated one. That's not, that it will be requiring some time to discuss the formation of a guyot. More systems in a mechanism, seafloor spreading in the mechanisms വഴിയിട്ടാണ് അത് I will explain ചെയ്യുന്നത്. That's a bit complicated. So that's the reason why I'm not discussing the formation of guyot. So the flat-topped seamounts are what we call as a guyot. You can draw the picture and you can write the definition. How are these topics asked in the mains question paper? I will discuss about how the questions are usually asked and all. First of all, have you completed this much? First of all, this much have you completed? I will discuss as to how the questions are usually asked and all. Okay. So we have discussed close to 4 major features. We have started with the continental shelf. After that, the continental slope region, deep sea plain, as well as the oceanic trenches. We have discussed 4 major features and we have discussed 4 minor features. For example, the continental, or for example, not the continental region. The first one that we discussed was the mid-oceanic ridge, more systems. So mid-oceanic ridges we have discussed. We have discussed submarine canyons. We have discussed sea mounts, and we have discussed the formation of guyot. So a question could be something like explain the major relief features which are found under the ocean floor. So that could be a possible question. Explain the major relief features. Or what are the speciality of the continental shelf region? Continental shelf region are famous for certain things. So why the continental shelf regions are famous? So such kinds of regions could be, or such kinds of questions could be asked in the examination. When it comes to continental shelf region, the continental shelf region are mainly famous for 2 things. First of all, most of the petroleum drilling platforms of the ocean. For example, recently we had an incident in which one barge which was operated by the ONGC was washed away as part of the Tauktae cyclone, and many people lost their lives. So why most of the drilling platforms are operating in the ocean floor? I'm just explaining very briefly only. So most of the marine organisms, the remains of marine organisms, these are what is getting converted into petroleum resources. So petroleum products, the petrol, diesel, the crude oil that we talk about, LPG. So most of the petroleum products, the petroleum resource, they are actually converted. It is actually the converted form of marine organisms only. The remains of marine organisms is what is getting converted into petroleum products. Okay, so such kinds of marine organisms are usually found under the ocean floor. That's the reason why bulk of the oil as well as petroleum products are usually taken from the ocean floor only. Now, there are petroleum resources which are found even in the shelf region as well as in the deep sea plain region, because the remains of marine organisms could be there in all these locations. But still, most of the oil drilling platforms are usually constructed on top of the continental shelf region, because it is very difficult to extract the resources from a depth of something like 4 kilometer, 5 kilometer, etc. Deep sea mining is a very difficult thing. So even if you are having resources in the deep sea plain, it is very difficult to access that. That's the reason why most of the oil drilling platforms of the world are usually constructed on the continental shelf region, because basically they're shallow locations of the ocean floor. That's the reason why the continental shelf regions are extremely important for the economy of the country. Most of the petroleum resources of a country will be coming from the continental shelf regions only. For example, many of you might have heard of one famous uh, oil drilling location in the western part of Mumbai called as the Mumbai High. So there is a oil drilling platforms in Arabian Sea. This is called as a Mumbai High. So this Mumbai High, this is basically an oil drilling platform in the Arabian Sea, again located in the continental shelf of Arabian Sea. Arabian Sea, the continental shelf, are located. So the importance of the continental shelf is that these are regions which are rich in petroleum resources from which the petroleum products are often accessed by the country. This is one of the first advantage. The second advantage is that because of the shallow water condition, the fish could be entering towards this location, and it is easy for the traditional fishermen to catch the fish which is entering towards the location. Deep sea fishing is a relatively difficult activity compared to fishing in the shallow waters. So the shallow waters of the continental shelf are also famous for fishing activities as well. For രണ്ട് കാര്യത്തിന് ഫേമസ് ആണ്, പെട്രോളിയം റിസോഴ്സസിന് ഫേമസ് ആണ്, സിമിലർലി ഇതേപോലെ തന്നെ ഫിഷിങ്ങിനും ഫേമസ് ആണ്. നിങ്ങൾക്ക് ആ പോയിന്റ് ഒന്ന് വേണമെങ്കിൽ നോട്ട് ചെയ്യാം. You can give a heading: importance of continental shelf. Importance of continental shelf. First point, they are used for extracting petroleum resources. Extracting petroleum resources. Petroleum resources. Example. ഞാൻ കുറച്ച് ഫേമസ് ആയിട്ടുള്ള കോണ്ടിനെന്റൽ ഷെൽഫിന്റെ പേരുകൾ പറയാൻ പോവാണ്. Some famous continental shelf we are going to write. Okay. First one, west coast of Mumbai. West coast of Mumbai. Persian Gulf. In western part of Asia, we have Persian Gulf, Gulf of Mexico, etc. Gulf of Mexico, etc. Second importance, they are important fishing regions. 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 Okay, so that is about the importance of the continental. That was about the importance of the continental shelf region. Continental shelf region importance ഞാൻ just discuss ചെയ്തതാണ്. Okay. So I will give you 10 minutes of interval and we will meet after that. 10 minutes. Okay, welcome back everyone. So oceanography was the topic that we have been looking at, and we've discussed, okay, and we have discussed the formation of underwater features, how the underwater features are formed, the spread, etc. We have discussed. Not in a detailed fashion, that is not important right now. Just to have a basic introduction, what are the major features or where it is found, etc. To have a basic idea only, we have discussed the case of the minor as well as the major relief features. So moving on, we have to discuss the formation of ocean currents. Ocean currents is the next formation that we have to basically look on to. So to give you an idea, so far we have discussed, first of all, we have discussed the ocean waves, how ocean waves are generated. And after that, we have discussed the ocean tides, how ocean tides are generated, the pattern of high tide as well as low tide, etc., how it is generated. And after that, we have looked on to the relief features, the ocean bottom kind of features which we can see in the ocean bottom. We have discussed the major features as well as the minor features which can be seen under the water. So next one is the ocean currents. So some people were asking me how the questions are usually phrased. So if you're straight away looking onto the kind of questions which are asked by UPSC, the terminology is the way in which the questions are phrased. It could be a bit confusing one. The difficulty level could be, it is pretty on the higher level. So that's the reason why right now your focus should not be reading too much into the question. That should not be the focus right now. Right now, try to understand the basic concepts. That is the most important thing. Because if you're starting to read the question paper, you'll feel like, okay, how am I going to answer these kinds of questions in the future? You feel like the questions will be extremely difficult. ഓക്കെ അപ്പൊ അറിയുന്നതിനകത്ത് മാത്രമല്ല കാര്യങ്ങൾ നമ്മൾ ആൻസർ റൈറ്റിംഗ് എന്നുള്ള ഐറ്റം ഇതിനകത്ത് വളരെ ഇമ്പോർട്ടന്റ് ആണ്. With proper planning, with proper experience, you'll be having in the know-how as to how to approach an answer. So answer writing is extremely important in UPSC. So these all will be taking time. Right now, you don't need to worry too much about to answer writing, the kind of questions asked, etc. and all. The more important thing is to build the proper foundation. So that's the reason why I'm not discussing too much into the questions which are usually asked in the question papers and all. But still, you might have heard as to how the questions are usually phrased. And if you have not heard of the question pattern, I'm just briefly explaining the pattern in which the questions are asked these days. For example, in the general studies paper, you'll be having about 20 questions. About 20 questions are asked in the mains examination in the general studies paper in GS 1 to 4. Okay, in this GS paper, about 10 questions, it will be for 10 marks, and about 10 questions, it will be for 15 marks. So there are 10 marker question and there are 10 15 marker questions. These are the kind of questions which are often asked in the examination. And the problem is that for a 10 marker question, you will be given a printed answer booklet. So the answer booklet is a printed answer booklet in the sense that you will be having a question. For example, explain the importance of continental shelf. So this is one main question. And after this printed question paper, you will be having 2 sheets of paper which is given. The problem is that suppose if you're writing and if you're not happy with your answer, you cannot cut and write. So that's one of the problems, like most of you will be doing in your school and college days, right? You'll be writing the examination and you'll feel like, okay, this answer is not that great. I have to strike it off. And after that, we'll be writing all over again. But this kind of option, it is not available in the case of UPSC because the question papers, the answer booklets are a printed answer booklet. So you'll be having the question paper which is printed to the answer booklet and you cannot strike off and write. Okay, so there is only fixed space which is given for you to write one particular answer. Not only that, there is also a problem with the time constraints as well. For example, for writing this 20 questions, you are getting 3 hours. So if you're doing the math, for writing a 10 marker question, you are getting something like 7 to 8 minutes. So 7 to 8 minutes, this is the maximum time. This is the time that you can take to write a 10 marker question. And mind you, writing 2 pages, filling 2 pages in a span of about 8 minutes, that's not a simple thing. It takes a lot of practice. It takes a lot of practice to complete 2 pages in a span of 8 minutes. So that's the reason why I'm saying like this answer writing should not be the focus in the initial stages of the examination. In the initial stage of examination, more important is the building up of knowledge. Gradually, when you're having the decent knowledge, then you can look on to as to how you can improve your answer writing skills. Because answer writing skill to improve, it will be taking some time. കാര്യം പലപ്പോഴും ആൾക്കാർക്ക് അറിയാവുന്ന ഒരു സിനാരിയോ സപ്പോസ് even if you know the answers of all the 20 questions which are asked in a GS paper, still it will be very difficult for you to complete that particular answer sheet. That's the scenario. So answer writing, it's a separate art. It's a separate art you have to master in the future. But right now, the focus should not be on answer writing. That's what I feel. This is not the time to improve the answer writing. Maybe you can think about increasing your handwriting speed. I've said this even before. If you believe you are having a relatively extremely slow handwriting speed, then you should be investing some time in improving your handwriting speed. Maybe you can start writing some 4-line books, or just analyze your own handwriting, which are the problematic alphabets in your writing. Is your R okay? Is your S okay? Is your T okay? What is the one which is more problematic? So just analyze your handwriting and you'll be getting a clarity as to what should be requiring improvement. So that those are the things that you can focus right now. Answer writing should not be the focus, because there is a good chance that people could be overwhelmed. They could be having the feeling like, okay, I might not be able to do this. This is too much. This is too much for me. So some people will be having these kinds of ideas or thinking. That's the reason why I'm saying avoid that. And since I said this much, if you're writing a 15 marker question, so in the case of a 15 marker question, you are supposed to write 3 pages. So 3 blank sheets will be given. You'll be having a printed question over here. And after that, you have to fill about 3 pages in the answer booklet. To complete that much, you'll be again getting something like 12 to 13 minutes. This is the time duration that you're getting to complete the 15 marker question. So what I'm trying to say through all these examples is that completing the answer sheet itself is a challenge, even if you know even if you know all the answers. So answer writing is a separate thing, and we will be discussing that in the future. How about your foundation class, other subjects? Is it done with? How many more classes are still left in the foundation course? Is it updated to you? How many more weeks or months of classes are left? This will be my last class. This will be the last class of geography. I don't know what's happening with other subjects. Did anyone talk to you about as to how many more classes will be there for foundation batch? Just anyone can just mention that in the chat box. Any idea? Okay, we completed Modern India. That's good. Who took the Modern India classes, by the way? Who was the faculty who took the? Do you know the name of the sir who took? Hemant sir. Okay. Okay. Economics also completed. Good. Environment ecology class have not been taken for so long. I don't know the reason. Okay. I'll just talk to them. I'll talk to the people who coordinate the sessions as to why not many classes were happening. My name, please. My name is Nanda Gopan. Okay. Prelims, how many papers are there? I will just briefly talk about prelims paper as well, but just wanted to have a clarity as to how many more classes are still left for you guys. Okay, okay. Okay, how many papers for the prelims examination? So that was the thing that you guys were asking. So when it comes to prelims examination, again, the question paper, again, is an objective question survey. You might have heard of the pattern from faculties, or you might have just looked onto the question paper by yourself. So basically, there are 2 question paper. The first one, the CSAT paper 1. So in the paper 1, you will be having close to 200 question. Sorry, about 100 question. And in paper 2, which will be again 2-hour examination. So both the examinations are 2-hour examinations only, and we'll be having 100 questions in the first one, and we'll be having 100 questions in the second paper. So the questions in the second paper are basically regarding aptitude, cons. So the 10th class maths, reasoning, logical reasoning, etc. questions will be asked in the second paper. Quantitative aptitude, a logical reasoning, a paragraph reading, such kinds of questions will be asked in the second paper. But this is a qualifying paper. You just need to have qualifying marks only. You need to have something like 66.5 marks, something like 66.66 marks in that particular paper out of 200. That's the mark that is supposed to score in that particular paper. When it comes to paper one, the paper one mark is a more important one. This is the mark which will be mainly counted. Paper two, you just need to qualify. Okay, you just need to score that many marks. That mark will not be counted when it comes to cutoff and all. So the mark which will be counted in the prelims is for the paper one only. Paper one will be the one which will be often counted. So that's the scenario. So paper one, you could be having questions from geography, polity, all the modern Indian history, all the classes that you're having these days. The questions are mainly asking, or it will be coming in the paper one only. And still, to give you a clarity, so there are 100 questions in paper one. Each question is carrying 2 marks. And if it's negative, you will be having a deduction of 0.66. So that's the scenario when it comes to paper one. So the paper one examination is happening for 200 marks. Since one question is having a weightage of 2 marks, the entire paper will be having a weightage of 200 marks. And out of this, to give you a clarity as to how tough the examination usually is, the cutoff most of these years is almost in the range of 100 marks only. So if you can score something like 100 marks out of 200 marks, then you will be clearing the prelims examination. That's the scenario most of these days. So the competition for prelims examination itself is actually pretty huge. For example, there are close to like 7 lakh students who are applying for the examination, and close to 10,000 people, something like 10,000, 12,000 people will be clearing the prelims examination. So this is the conversion ratio, something like 2%, 3%. This is the often the conversion ratio when it comes to people who are appearing for the prelims examination and then who are clearing the prelims examination. And from this 10,000 people or 12,000 odd people who are writing the mains examination, so this many people qualifies for the mains examination. And from the people who are qualifying the mains examination, something like about 3,000 or so, less than 3,000 people, they'll be shortlisted for interview. And 1/3 people, almost something like 700 to 800, this many people will be qualifying in the final rank list. And even in the final rank list, if you're a general category person, in order to get IAS, you will have to get a rank something like within 80. ഒരു 80-നകത്തെങ്കിലും റാങ്ക് വന്നെങ്കിലേ നിങ്ങൾക്ക് IAS കിട്ടാനുള്ള ചാൻസ് ഉള്ളൂ ഇഫ് യു ആർ എ ജനറൽ കാറ്റഗറി പേഴ്സൺ. OBC ആണെങ്കിൽ 250, 300 വരെ ഒക്കെ പോകും. SC ST ആണെങ്കിൽ 500 അടുത്ത് വരെ ആ വരെ പോകാം. ആ ഒരു ലാസ്റ്റ് റാങ്കിലെ വേരിയേഷൻ എന്ന് പറയുന്നത്. So this is how usually the things will be happening. So this is the kind of screening process. This is the kind of competition that we have over here. IRS last rank also something like 300, 300, somewhere close to 200, 300 is the last rank for IRS for general category people. IRS. Those are the scenario. IAS is the most sought after. Something like 70. One of my my friend who's having a rank of something like 79 or 78. That particular person didn't get IAS this year, because the IAS last rank was something like 77, something like that was the last rank. I don't remember the exact value, but it was a relatively small value, 2-digit value only. And IFS is something close to 90, 95. That's the usual range. It will be varying from year to year. That's the reason why I cannot give you an exact value. It will be varying from year to year. Okay, so that is the scenario. Again, you don't need to worry too much about the competition. Competition, you have to give your all. That's the thing that you're supposed to be doing. Okay, so in these classes, right, if you're a person who have attended almost all the foundation classes, then you'll be having a basic idea as to how you should be approaching the examination. Okay, you'll be having a clarity how you should be approaching, what all things you should be focusing on. You'll be having a clarity. Have you attempted UPSC? I have mentioned all these things in my very first class, if I remember correctly. have given attempts so far. I have written 2 mains examinations so far, but I have yet to qualify the mains examination so far. Okay. But I've had decently good marks in certain paper. What happens is that there are 9 papers. Okay. There are usually 9 question papers in the mains examination. There are 4 GS studies paper. So general studies, there are 4 paper. So out of the 9, that 4 of them are for general studies. 2 of them are for optional paper. 2 qualifying paper will be there. There'll be 2 qualifying paper. And there is 1 paper on essay. So what happens is that most often what happens is if I'm getting good marks in the optional, I'll be messing up some GS paper. For example, what happened in the last mains exam, the last mains that I returned was the 2019 mains examination when I've returned that. After that, I didn't give the attempt after that. I was taking a break sort of. So in the 2019 mains examination, I got in certain paper, I got very good marks. For example, in essay paper, I got one of the highest mark. I got 114 marks in the essay paper. Last year, in that year's first rank holder also scored 140 marks in that particular year. I got the same marks as the person who scored first rank in essay paper. But when it comes to GS3 paper, in general studies paper 3, I scored only 58 marks out of 250, which was a very pathetic mark. If at all I scored something like 70, 75, I would have gotten through. But there is no point in talking about as to how many marks if you're getting you would have gotten through. There is no point in talking about it. The truth is that you scored very badly in one paper and you messed up. I got decent marks in geography optional. I scored 248 marks for my geography option, which is also out of 500, which is also not a bad mark that year, given the fact that people who scored 233 in the optional itself got IRS, etc. In that particular year. But so I scored decent marks in essay, GS4, I scored good marks. Ethics paper, I had decent marks. I had decent marks in essay paper as well, but I scored very badly in my GS3, there, which limited my chances of getting through, which was mainly current affairs based questions. I was not having the time to go through the newspaper because of my frequent classes. I was not having dedicated time to go through the newspaper, which affected badly in my GS3 paper. So basically what I'm trying to say is that you have to work hard, and if you are working hard, this is something which is very much of a possibility. People like me find it difficult because we are basically juggling our preparation with our work schedule. Basically, we are working and preparing. So that will be taking a lot of time from the preparation. So that's the reason why if you are starting to prepare, you should be, I'm not saying that working and giving the examination is not an impossible thing, but it is very difficult thing to do compared to a person who is straight out of college and starting to prepare. Okay. So that's about the philosophy and all. We'll be discussing that at a later time. And ocean currents is the next one that we need to look on to. Okay. So people were asking me about the how geography is performing as an optional and all. I will be coming to that particular question. But before that, I would like to wind up this class by discussing these things as well. So I have to discuss ocean currents as well in today's session. In general, the term ocean current is used for the horizontal movements in the uppermost layers of the water, the top 100 meter, called as a surface layer. So the term ocean current is used for the horizontal movement of water in the topmost region. So basically, the wind systems are the reasons because of which the water will be having a tendency to move in the topmost layer, and such kinds of ocean water movement is what we call as an ocean current. They are primarily due to wind systems. For example, you can see in this picture, you can see multiple ocean currents across the world. If you can look onto the Atlantic Ocean, you can see terminologies such as Gulf Stream, North Atlantic Drift, Canary Current, Benguela Current, Brazil Current. So you can see multiple names. All these are showing the different ocean currents which are operating across the world. So why these ocean currents are operating? Why the particles are moving? This is because of the presence of wind systems operating in the region. For example, Gulf Stream is operating in that particular location because of the presence of westerly wind systems which are operating in that region. So there is a kind of wind system which is called as westerly, and this wind system is the reason because of which you are having the presence of Gulf Stream. Yeah. So this is how the ocean currents are usually operating across the world. Now, mind you, you might have heard of the terminology ocean, you might have heard of the terminology current before. At least you might have heard of electric current, the normal currents up like ACV, etc. that we talk about. So what do we mean by current? Current is basically the flow of something. The flow of something is what we call as current. The flow of charges is what we call as the electric current, right? The flow of charges is what we call as electric current. Similarly, the flow of ocean water is what we call as the ocean current. So current means the flow of something. Ocean current means it is the flow of ocean water. And this flow of ocean water is most often created by the action of wind systems operating in a particular region. So wind systems are one of the most important activating factor when it comes to the ocean currents. That's the reason why most of the ocean currents of the world, they are in alignment with the wind systems operating in the region. ഒരു സ്ഥലത്ത് ഏത് ഡയറക്ഷനിലാണോ വിൻഡ് ഓപ്പറേറ്റ് ചെയ്യുന്നത് അതേ ഡയറക്ഷനിൽ തന്നെ ആയിരിക്കും അതിന് തൊട്ട് താഴെയുള്ള ഓഷൻ കറൻസും പലപ്പോഴും ഓപ്പറേറ്റ് ചെയ്യാൻ പോകുന്നത്. Because most often the ocean currents are generated by the action of wind systems of a region only. You can give the heading ocean currents and you can note the things which are mentioned in the slide. Completed, just let me know when it is completed. I guess some of you will be having the classes will be resuming in your school and college days from the next week, right? I mean, it will be happening for few colleges and few schools, I guess. The next academic year will be starting. Okay, I don't know. I still don't know how many people, how many proportion of students, more of you are still in college or school days. I mean, do you know that most of you are from school or college? Just to give me a clarity, just wanted to know that. Is it done? Okay, so it never stopped for BTech. Okay, great. Okay, there are many college people and there are many people who are in 11th and 12th standard. Good. Okay, okay, good. I just want to know. And I'm more, especially for the people who are in college, I know that you should be in college, once a while hanging out with your friends and all. Uh, but this is how the things are. So basically, we have to be alive, right? That's the most privileged thing, to be alive. That's a good thing, to be alive. So that's the reason why, despite the problem, it will be better to stay at your home and to attend the classes, something like this. Anyway, coming back to what I was saying, ocean currents. So ocean currents എന്താണ് പറഞ്ഞു? So next one is a classification of ocean currents. So on the basis of relative temperature with the surrounding water, the ocean currents are classified into two, the warm currents as well as the cold currents. So you can see this picture. So basically in this picture, you can see that there are red colored lines as well as blue colored lines as well. The red colored lines are indicating warm currents and the blue colored ones are indicating the cold currents. So warm currents, basically a warm current will be having relatively high temperature compared to the surrounding water. For example, if you can take the case of Gulf Stream, you can see the picture of Gulf Stream over here. Gulf Stream is an example for a warm current because compared to the surrounding portion of the Atlantic Ocean, so Gulf Stream is operating in the Atlantic Ocean. Compared to the surrounding portions of the Atlantic Ocean region, the Gulf Stream is said to be having relatively high temperature condition. So that's the reason why Gulf Stream is said to be an example for a warm current. It is having a high temperature condition. High temperature, maybe at 2 degree, 3 degree temperature difference. Minute temperature differences compared to the surrounding region. So such currents are called as warm current. And if it is having relatively cooler condition, then it will be often an example for a cold current. Now people will be having confusion as to why we are having warm current as well as cold current. The reason is simple. Most of the warm currents are generated from the equatorial region. And what will be the temperature of water near the equatorial region? It will be relatively high temperature condition. That's the reason why the warm currents are basically having warm water. And you can see, for example, Labrador current. You can see one current which is called as Labrador current in the picture. Labrador current is an example for what kind of current? You can see it is an example for a cold current. Most of the cold currents are coming from the polar region. In the polar region, we know that we have relatively low temperature condition. So that's the reason for the generation of warm and cold currents. Most of the cold currents are coming from the polar region, and most of the warm currents are coming from the near to the equatorial region or tropical region, which will be having high temperature conditions. Okay, so you can note that particular point, classification of ocean currents on the basis of relative temperature with the surrounding water. Classification of ocean currents on the basis of relative temperature with the surrounding waters. Warm current and cold current. So that is the classification of ocean currents on the basis of relative temperature with the surrounding water. So I hope it is completed. So if this is done with, so next we have to look onto the classification of ocean currents, but this time on the basis of speed and identity. Okay, on the basis of speed and identity, how ocean currents can be identified. But identity in uddeshikuna, how well the boundary of that particular current can be identified. If it is having a clear boundary, then we will be having a say that that ocean current will be having a good identity. We'll be discussing about that particular thing. You'll be getting clarity when you look onto the examples.
First of all, we can look onto the current systems which are often mentioned as a drift. Drift എന്ന് mention ചെയ്യുന്ന ocean currents നെയാണ് first നമ്മൾ നോക്കാൻ പോകുന്നത്. Drift refers to the slow movement of the surface layer about 16 to 24 kilometers per day, and there is no clear boundaries. So the slowest of ocean currents, which is transporting about 16 to 24 kilometers per day of water. So on a day, if it is transporting about 16 to 24 kilometers per day, then such kinds of slow ocean water movements are what we call as a drift. But drift എന്ന് പറയുന്ന ഏറ്റവും slower ആയിട്ടുള്ള ocean currents നെ പറയുന്ന പേരാണ് drift എന്ന് പറയുന്നത്. For example, if you're looking onto the picture, you can see that there is one current system which is called as a North Atlantic drift. So North Atlantic drift, it is a warm current, but it is also a relatively slow ocean current. That's the reason why it is called as a drift. In the name, we call it as a drift. Okay. And when it comes to identity, it is not having clear boundaries. So the boundary of the ocean current and the surrounding water, it is not that clear. That's the reason why identity, it is not that clear in the case of the drift. So the slowest one, as well as the boundaries are not clear, is what we call as a drift. Now, second one, the terminology, we just call it as an ocean current. Just current. They are surface movements which are more rapid, 6 to 8 kilometers per hour. So you can just look onto the drift. In the case of drift, 16 to 24 kilometers per day was the speed. ഒരു ദിവസം 16 മുതൽ 24 കിലോമീറ്റർ വരെയാണ്. But when it comes to normal ocean current, it is about 6 to 8 kilometers per hour. This is the speed of most of the ocean current. So if you are having a relatively better speed, more rapid velocity compared to that of the drift, we call it as current. Okay, for example, you can see Brazilian current, Peru current, Californian current, Alaskan current, North Equatorial current, South Equatorial current, Venezuela current, Agulhas current. We call it as just as current, which means that they are faster compared to the drift systems. So they are relatively faster movement. That's the meaning of the word current. For example, if you've seen the film Finding Nemo, there's a very famous animation film by the name Finding Nemo. If you've seen this particular film Finding Nemo, in the film Finding Nemo, there's a sequence in which so if you've seen the film, ഈ സിനിമ കണ്ടിട്ടുള്ള വ്യക്തികളാണെങ്കിൽ ഇതിനകത്ത് ഒരു സീൻ ഉണ്ട്, ഒരു particular there's a particular scene in that particular movie in which, so what happens is that the main characters Marlin and Dory, so Marlin and Dory are the main characters. So Marlin is looking after the lost child. Okay, Nemo is the lost child of Marlin. So Marlin is trying to look after that particular child, Nemo. So Nemo is taken towards the Sydney coast. ഞാൻ സിനിമയുടെ കഥയാണ് പറയുന്നത്. സിഡ്നിയിലെ ഹാർബറിലേക്ക് കൊണ്ടുപോയെന്ന് മാത്രം അറിയാം. So basically, northern Australia, just look onto the map. Australia's mapലോട്ട് നോക്കാം. Just look onto the Australian map. So basically, the characters in the film are located in the northern part of Australia. They have to travel to Sydney coast. So what they will be entering is that they will be entering the East Australian current. So East Australian current being a faster water movement, they will be straight away taken back to the southern part of Australia, that is the Sydney coast. ആ സിനിമയിൽ ഈ ഈസ്റ്റ് ഓസ്ട്രേലിയൻ കറണ്ടിനെയാണ് കാണിക്കുന്നത്. ഈ സറൗണ്ടിങ് പോർഷനിൽ you can see this is the moment in which Marlin and Dory is entering the East Australian current. In the film, it is called as the Pacific Superhighway. So the Pacific Superhighway in the film is basically the East Australian current only. ഈ current system ആണ് ഇതിനകത്ത് Pacific Superhighway എന്ന് പറഞ്ഞ് കാണിക്കുന്നത്. നിങ്ങൾക്ക് കാണാം സറൗണ്ടിങ് പോർഷനിലെ ടേർട്ടിൽസ് എല്ലാം ഫാസ്റ്റ് ആയിട്ട് പോകുന്നുണ്ട്. So why the faster movement? The faster movement is because the water, it is because the ocean current only. സിനിമയെ പറ്റി എക്സാമിന് ചോദിക്കാനൊന്നും പോകുന്നില്ല, നിങ്ങൾ കുറച്ചുപേര് കണ്ടിട്ടുള്ള സിനിമയായിരിക്കും, അത് കാരണം ജസ്റ്റ് ഈ കറണ്ടുമായിട്ടുള്ള ബന്ധം ഞാൻ ജസ്റ്റ് ഒന്ന് പറഞ്ഞു എന്നുള്ളതേ ഉള്ളൂ. Some of you might have seen the film, right? Have you guys seen the film, by the way? Yeah, some people are telling me you can share the link of the movie. We will go watch the movie in the YouTube. Yeah, that's a good thing. It will be taking like 2 hours. Okay. And the people who are organizing the class will be firing me for sharing an entire movie in the chat box. You can go watch the movie after the session if you want. It's up to you. Okay. Anyway, So that was about current. So I said that drift is relatively slow movement, 16 to 24 kilometer per day. Currents are relatively more faster, about 6 to 8 kilometer per hour. ഒരു മണിക്കൂറിൽ 6 to 8 kilometer പോകുന്നതിനൊക്കെയാണ് usually we call it as a normal ocean current. And the last one is a stream. So stream refers to surface movements having very good speed. So last one is stream. These are extremely faster ocean movements. And the boundaries are clearly identifiable as well. So surface movements having very good speed is what we call as a stream, more than 8 kilometers per hour. So these are the fastest ocean currents of the world. 8 of fastest variety and streams in the പറയുന്നത്. ഈ picture you can see the Gulf Stream. So why it is called as a stream? This is the fastest ocean currents of the world. Okay, so the ones which are relatively more faster, they are often called as a stream. നിങ്ങൾ ഈ ഒരു picture നോക്കുക. This is a cartoon. Fish post ആണ്. This is a fish post office. It is mentioned that express delivery through the Gulf Stream is an extra $2, sir. ഇത് മനസ്സിലാക്കണമെങ്കിൽ ഇത്തിരി വിവരം വേണം, എങ്കിൽ മാത്രമേ ഇതിന്റെ ജോക്ക് കിട്ടത്തുള്ളൂ. Basically, this is a fish post office, and it is mentioned that if you want to give an express delivery, more like the speed post which is available over here, if you want to send a speed post through Gulf Stream, you have to pay an extra $2. So why it is mentioned, Gulf Stream is one of the fastest ocean currents of the world. So that's the reason why if you are using the Gulf Stream, you have to pay more. That's the meaning which is mentioned over here. Okay. This is not an actual post office. Okay, this is a cartoon. Some people will be wondering. So you can note down this classification of ocean currents. Classification of ocean currents on the basis of speed and identity. Note down this slide. Let me know when it is completed. Everybody done with classification of ocean currents? Okay, good. So that was a classification of ocean currents into drift current, stream, etc. and all. So next one, a gyre system. So gyre system, first of all, I will explain the concept of gyre system, and after that you can write it. So basically, what happens is that in most of the ocean basins, multiple current systems will be operating. For example, for the time being, you can look onto the Northern Atlantic Ocean. In Northern Atlantic Ocean, you have multiple current systems. For example, Gulf Stream, the North Atlantic Drift, Canary Current, North Equatorial Current System. These current systems together are creating almost a circular or in the shape of an ellipse. So a circle or an ellipse-like shape is created by the current systems operating in a region. Such elliptical loops of current system, such elliptical loops of current systems which are circulating in the ocean basins are called as a gyre system. So gyre system is created by not a single current, multiple current systems will be together circulating in a region and will be resulting in a gyre system. For example, you can see the North Atlantic gyre in the picture. You can also see the South Atlantic gyre, South Pacific gyre, North Pacific gyre, Indian Ocean gyre. You can see multiple gyre systems. So in each of the ocean basins, we will be having multiple gyre systems which are created by multiple ocean current. So you can add the definition. You can give a heading gyres. Gyres എന്നുള്ള heading കൊടുക്കാം. They are elliptical. They are elliptical loops of currents. Elliptical loops of currents. Elliptical loops of currents elliptical loops of currents formed in the ocean basins. Elliptical loops of currents formed in the ocean basins. Formed in the ocean basins. Example, we have 5. You can mention the name of 5 of them. The North Pacific gyre, the South Pacific gyre, the North Atlantic gyre, South Atlantic gyre, and Indian Ocean gyre. There are 5 major gyre systems that we have in the world. North Pacific gyre, South Pacific gyre, North Atlantic gyre, South Atlantic gyre, and Indian Ocean gyre. These are the 5 major gyre systems. You can note the name of the 5 of them: North Pacific gyre, South Pacific gyre, North Atlantic gyre, South Atlantic gyre, and the Indian Ocean gyre. Is it done? Okay. So I guess it is completed with. So next one, you can give a heading, mixing of ocean currents. Mixing of ocean currents. So just first of all, listen here briefly, and after that we can just discuss to what as we can write as to what is the effect of mixing of ocean currents. So when a warm and a cold ocean current is mixing, most often these regions are famous for fishing activity. The mixing of a cold ocean current as well as a warm ocean current, the temperature is neither too high nor too low. You're having a moderate condition. And this moderate condition, which is resulting by the mixing of a warm and cold ocean current, we found out that these are ideal for the growth of phytoplanktons. So phytoplanktons are microscopic algae-like organisms which can be seen in the ocean, and these are often found to be at the base of the food chain in the ocean, which means that the phytoplanktons are consumed by the zooplanktons which are found in the sea, and the zooplanktons are consumed by the fishes. So this is how the food chain of the oceans are basically working. So at the base of the food chain, we have the phytoplanktons. So when you're having the mixing of warm and cold ocean currents, it is ideal for the growth of phytoplanktons. The phytoplanktons are consumed by the zooplanktons, and the zooplanktons are basically the food activity for the food for the fishes. So basically what I'm trying to say is that when you're having a scenario in which a cold current is mixing with a warm ocean current, the resulting water will be ideal for the growth of fishes. It will be leading to an extraordinary fish catch. A fish catch കൂടാനുള്ള chance കൂടുതലാണ് if you're having the mixing of a cold current and warm current. I will give an example. When two current systems are mixing, this is the mixing of Gulf Stream. So I'm considering two currents, Gulf Stream and Labrador current. So these two current systems are mixing towards the eastern coast of North America. Towards the eastern coast of North America, we have the mixing of Gulf Stream and the Labrador current. So Labrador current is an example for a cold current, and Gulf Stream is an example for a warm current. So when this mixing is happening, for example, you can see that there are locations which are mentioned as Grand Banks. So near to Grand Banks, we have the mixing of this cold current and warm current. And that's the reason why this region is famous for fishing activity, especially the codfish. So there's a kind of fish which is called as a codfish. Most of you must have had cod liver oil tablets. 7 C's, mean gulliga എന്ന് പറഞ്ഞിട്ടുള്ള items majority ആൾക്കാരും കഴിച്ചിട്ടുണ്ടായിരിക്കും. And most of them, it will be cod liver oil. It will be mentioned that it is cod liver oil. So that cod fish, cod is a fish which is mainly caught from this region. Second example for this kinds of activity, towards the eastern coast of Japan. So when it comes to Japanese islands, there are two major islands. The northern island is called as Hokkaido, and the southern island is called as Honshu. But Japanese islands are two major islands. Hokkaido and Honshu. These are the two major islands which are part of Japan. So near the Honshu island of Japan, we have the mixing of two ocean currents. The Kuroshio current, this is one current called as Kuroshio current, and the second one is called as the Oyashio current. So Oyashio current is a cold current and Kuroshio current is a warm current. Japan Oyashio, Kuroshio. So the mixing of this Oyashio and Kuroshio current is again resulting in good fish catch. You might have heard of the fact Japanese cuisine is famous for fish. Fish-based cuisine is very famous. Sushi, Japanese sushi. Okay, so most of the famous Japanese cuisines, Japanese food items are basically out of this kind of fish-based items only. Japanese fishing industry is extremely famous. Raw fish, that's one of the problem. Most of the sushi, sashimi, most of these items, basically you're having raw fish only. And the most famous fish which is often consumed by the Japanese people is tuna. Bluefin tuna is one of the most famous one. Tuna is the one which is more famous. Items. I don't know what is the name which is given. And people eat it raw. That's the thing that you wouldn't understand. I mean, they will just cut the fish, they'll just cut the flesh, they will add some rice and they will eat it. So that's a very popular dish in Japan and across the world. Sushi is a pretty popular one. Okay, so Japanese fishing industry is thriving. It is famous one, and one of the reason is the mixing of the Oyashio current and the Kuroshio current, which is leading to extraordinary fish catch. So that's the scenario. Bluefin tuna, it happened a few years before. One bluefin tuna, it weighed something like 600 kilogram. In an auction, it was sold for about 8 crore rupees. 8 കോടി രൂപയ്ക്കാണ് 600 കിലോ ഉള്ള ഒരു മീൻ വിറ്റുപോയത്. So it is that crazy. Japanese people are that crazy about fish. And most of the food items that they're eating, they're usually eating it in a raw manner only. എനിക്കാണെങ്കിൽ ചിന്തിക്കാൻ കൂടി പെട്ടത് ഈ ചൂരയൊക്കെ എന്ന് പറഞ്ഞാൽ ഓൾറെഡി കറി വെച്ച് കഴിഞ്ഞാൽ തന്നെ ഐ എം നോട്ട് എ ബിഗ് ഫാൻ ഓഫ് ദാറ്റ് ടു ബി ഓണസ്റ്റ് ആൻഡ് ദേ ഈറ്റ് ഇൻ pretty raw manner. That's the scenario. So you can give a heading, mixing of ocean currents. You can start writing mixing of ocean currents. The mixing of warm and cold ocean currents. The mixing of warm and cold ocean currents the mixing of warm and cold ocean currents results in a favorable habitat 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 for the growth of planktons for the growth of planktons for the growth of planktons, which in turn results in extraordinary fish catch. Which in turn results in extraordinary fish catch. Example, the east central coast. Example, the east central coast of North America. The east central coast of North America. The east central coast of North America, where the cold Labrador current, where the cold Labrador current, where the cold Labrador current mixes with the warm Gulf Stream, mixes with the warm Gulf Stream, where the cold Labrador current mixes with the warm Gulf Stream. Cold Labrador current mixes with the warm Gulf Stream. Second example. East coast of Honshu Island of Japan. East coast of Honshu Island of Japan, where the cold Oyashio current mixes with the warm Kuroshio current. Mixes with the warm Kuroshio current, where the cold Oyashio current mixes with the warm Kuroshio current. So that is the advantage of mixing of ocean currents. So mixing of ocean currents in the advantages in just discuss it. Okay. So some people were asking a few questions in between the session. So I guess I'll answer those questions rather than continuing with the session. Most of the things that I wanted to say, I have already discussed. So I have discussed mainly 3 kinds of ocean water movement. I have discussed ocean waves, I have discussed ocean tides, and I have discussed the ocean currents. Not only that, I also discussed the ocean bottom features, the major features, minor features also were discussed. Oceanography basics ആയിട്ടുള്ള എല്ലാ കാര്യങ്ങളും ഞാൻ ഇവിടെ ഡിസ്കസ് ചെയ്തിട്ടുണ്ട്. ഇതിന്റെ ഒരുപാട് ഡീറ്റെയിൽസിലോട്ട് നമുക്ക് കയറി പോകാൻ പറ്റുന്ന പോർഷൻസ് ആണ്, ബട്ട് ഐ എം നോട്ട് എൻറ്ററിങ് ഇൻ ടു ദ ഡീറ്റെയിൽസ്, or I mean the deeper most portions of oceanography. That is not the objective of the session. So some people were asking me about the scope of geography as an optional. Geography as an optional is a very good thing to take, but the problem was that almost like 2 years ago, till like 2 years ago, people who have taken geography as their optional, they were not getting that much marks. So that was one of the problems. They were not getting enough marks. Okay, I don't know what's the reason. UPSC was basically was not awarding good marks to people who have taken geography as their optional. But compared to that, other people who have taken political science, sociology, etc., they were getting better marks. So many people started moving away from geography optional in search of other options. After first attempt and second attempt, many people who have had geography as their option, they have started taking other subjects as their optional. But in 2019, I mean, that's the last marks that is still available. 2020 മെയിൻസിന്റെ മാർക്സ് ഇതുവരെ പബ്ലിഷ് ആയിട്ടില്ല. ലാസ്റ്റ് അവൈലബിൾ ആയിട്ടുള്ള മാർക്ക് എന്ന് പറയാൻ 2019 മെയിൻസിലാണ്. In 2019 marks, if you are looking onto the marks, even the geography optional people are getting good marks. For example, in my own case, when I have taken geography as my mains and I have returned other mains examinations before, I have had very pathetic marks. I'll give an example. In 2017 mains examination, which I have written, it's a mains examination that I have given. In 2017 means I got 206 marks out of 500. Okay, so that year there are many people. For example, one of my friend who was taking other political science and all, they all scored 290, 295, etc. These were the marks people who have taken political science as their optional got. So many people got afraid of geography as to why UPSC is demeriting people who have taken geography as their optional. Many people started taking other optionals, started moving away from geography. But coming to 2019, the trend changed a bit, in which almost all the optional people got bad marks. എല്ലാവർക്കും മോശം മാർക്കാണ് കിട്ടിയത്. അപ്പൊ ആർക്കും വിഷമിക്കേണ്ട കാര്യമില്ല. എല്ലാവരെയും തേച്ചു കൊടുത്തു UPSC. ജോഗ്രഫിയും തേഞ്ഞു, സോഷ്യോളജിയും തേഞ്ഞു, ആന്ത്രപ്പോളജിയും തേഞ്ഞു. Almost everyone got bad marks. And geography is actually was comparatively better, I would say, because my friend who is right now an IRS officer, he got 238 in sociology and he is an IRS officer right now. I scored 246 in geography optional and I'm still here. Okay, so that's the scenario. So we can't say as to what will be working out for you, because people who got 230 scored very well in GS paper and they ultimately had a very good overall total mark because they scored very well in GS paper. In my scenario, I scored somewhat decently in my optional paper. To give you an idea, Devi Nandana, she also happened to be my student. She was also writing the examination that particular year along with me. She was my student. She was also writing the examination. So Devi Nandana, she got an All India rank of 94, I guess, if I remember correctly. Her Malayalam optional mark was 258. So 258 marks was the marks that she was getting in Malayalam option. That is not too high if you can just think. The mark is not too high. It is not like 300 or something like that. And still she got to clear examination. She got IFS, Indian Foreign Service Officer. She's an IFS officer right now. Okay, so that's the scenario. What I'm trying to say is that നമ്മൾ ഒരെണ്ണത്തിനകത്ത് നല്ലോണം മാർക്ക് വാങ്ങിച്ചു എന്ന് കരുതി എല്ലാം കഴിഞ്ഞില്ല. ഇപ്പൊ എല്ലാവരും എന്റെ ജോഗ്രഫി ഓപ്ഷനിലെ മാർക്ക് ആ വർഷം കേട്ടപ്പോൾ വിചാരിച്ചു എന്നാൽ കുഴപ്പമില്ല, നല്ല മാർക്കാണല്ലോ. ബട്ട് ഐ സ്കോർഡ് വെരി ബാഡ്ലി ഇൻ മൈ GS പേപ്പർ ദാറ്റ് I was not able to clear. So it is not entirely about your optional mark. You have to score some decent mark in your GS papers as well as the essay paper. And for essay, I scored 140. Devi Nandana scored 132. I scored 8 marks more than her. But again, I scored very badly in my GS paper. So that's the scenario. Why am I saying all these marks over here? Just to give you a clarity. Out of the 9 papers, if you're messing up just one paper, that could be enough for you. Okay, even if I got some average marks in GS3, then maybe I would have cleared. But this is how life is. This is how reality is. Sometimes you'll be messing up in one paper and your entire preparation will be doomed. So that's the scenario. So basically, what I'm trying to say, what I would like to say is that thinking about optional, that's something that you should be thinking. Uh, if you're a person who is planning to give the preparation in the maybe next 2 years or so, if you're planning to give the examination maybe after 2 years or so, then you can start thinking about the option as to what could be, what is the good one. You can start asking people, okay, what is the scope of that particular option? What are the things which will be studied in one particular option? Recently, something happened. One of my friend, okay, she's my college senior. So she's the sub collector in one district. And while she was attending one orientation session, she's an IAS officer, my college senior. So she was attending one orientation session, and one seventh class student is asking about the scope of anthropology as optional. 7th class anthropology എന്താന്ന് നിങ്ങൾക്ക് അറിയോ? First of all, I'm not asking, I'm not completely discouraging, but a 7th class student is asking about the scope of anthropology as an option in civil services. Maybe after 10 years, that particular person will be writing the civil services examination, and maybe then, maybe you might not even have, you might not even be having the concept of optional then. കാര്യം ഓപ്ഷണൽ പേപ്പർ എന്നുള്ള കൺസെപ്റ്റ് ഭാവിയിൽ എടുത്തു കളയാനുള്ള ചാൻസ് ഉണ്ട്. കാര്യം പല ആൾക്കാരും പല പേപ്പർ എഴുതിയിട്ട്, ഒരാൾ ജോഗ്രഫി എഴുതുന്നു, ഒരാൾ സോഷ്യോളജി എഴുതുന്നു, ഒരാൾ ആന്ത്രപ്പോളജി എഴുതുന്നു, എന്നിട്ട് എല്ലാവർക്കും കൂടെ മാർക്ക് ഇട്ടതിന് ശേഷമാണ് വരുന്നത്. So there is a suggestion that optional might be taken away in the future. There is no guarantee that optional papers will be existing maybe after like 3 or 4 years. So I would like to say, what I would like to remind you when it comes to optional paper is that we can't be guaranteed as to how things will be maybe after 4 years or 5 years down the line. If you're a person who is in the final year of college, then you can start thinking, okay, maybe what kind of optional could I be taking, etc. You can start inquiring and just look on to the previous year toppers. Okay, for example, if you want to take sociology as your optional, just search, is there any topper who have taken sociology as their option and got a very good rank? So just look onto that in the internet, and just also look onto the syllabus. Is it interesting for you? For example, many people will be taking sociology as their optional, and in sociology you'll be studying about all kinds of relationships in the society and all the basics of different things which will be happening in the society you'll be studying, and some people will be understanding this is not my cup of tea. Okay, so there are many kinds of things that you will be encountering only after taking one particular option. So it will be better, first of all, ask yourself, is this subject interesting to me? For example, geography was pretty interesting for me. That's the reason why I have taken this as my option, because studying about all these things was interesting for me. And mind you, don't think like this is only geography, the mountain, ocean, wind system. This is not only geography is only about. There are even philosophy. We have to study the basics of philosophy in geography optional. Geography optional, philosophy basics, anthropology basics, economics basics. We had one question in 2017 geography optional question paper. The question was about Panchayat Raj institutions. So you should know that geography, the scope of geography syllabus is a broad one. Mountain, ocean മാത്രമൊന്നുമല്ല, Panchayat Raj institution പറ്റി ഉണ്ടായിരുന്നു, IRNSS satellite പറ്റി ഉണ്ടായിരുന്നു. I'm talking about geography optional. So these were all asked in geography optional as well. Geography optional syllabus is pretty exhaustive. It is even incorporating many 3-tier Panchayat Raj systems. All these systems are also included in the geography syllabus. That's the reason why I'm asking you guys to first of all look onto the syllabus and before deciding. Okay, അപ്പം പല ആൾക്കാരെ സംഭവിക്കുന്ന മലയും കുന്നും ആന്ന് പറഞ്ഞ ജോഗ്രഫി വരും, മലയും കുന്നും മാത്രമല്ല, മലയും കുന്നും ഒക്കെ ഉണ്ട്, ഇതെല്ലാം ഉണ്ട്. You have mountains, oceans, all these things you have to study. But along with all these things, we have to study the basics of all these things as well. So that's the scenario. So you will be having an idea when you are reading too much into when you are looking onto the syllabus syllabus of the examination, asking to some toppers who have cleared with that particular optionals, etc. There are tons of interviews of the UPSC top optional people in the YouTube, in the internet, etc. and all. So you can see such kinds of interviews, and you will be having a clarity as to how to approach when it comes to the examination. Okay, so if you're a person, I would like to remind this point one more time. If you're a person who is in the school or college days, your priority right now is not civil services examination. Your priority is your school or college day preparation. Because ultimately, if you're failing in your college, then you will not be able to write the examination for the in the first place. You have to pass your degree examination. You have to be a graduate if you want to write the examination. I mean, you can write even if you're a final year college student, you can still write the examination. That is also a possibility. Even if the final year results are not declared, you can still write the examination. That is another possibility. But still, you have to pass the examination. So that's the scenario. And I've said this even before. Right now, focus on the basic bare minimum stuff that you can do. For example, attending these classes is good. Most of you will be having a clarity as to what all things will be happening in the climatology, oceanography. You know the basics after attending these classes. So that's good. But mainly focus on doing the other things. For example, reading newspaper, make it into a habit. So after waking up in the morning, one of the first instinct, maybe you can just pick up the newspaper, go through the major headlines, what is happening in your country, and don't focus on the negative news. ചില ആൾക്കാരെ നെഗറ്റീവ് ന്യൂസിൽ മാത്രമായിരിക്കും ഫോക്കസ്, കൊലപാതകം, റേപ്പ്, ഇതൊക്കെ ആയിരിക്കും കൂടുതൽ എടുത്ത് വായിക്കുന്നത്. അത് മാത്രമല്ല, there are many other good things which are happening around you. Just record the good news as well. Okay, so start reading newspaper. That's one of the best thing that you can do. And try to improve the reading habit in general. That will be giving you rich dividends in the future. Because you should know this thing. Why I'm getting 140 marks in essay, that's a very good mark. One of the reason is that I have read a lot of books in my school and college days, and even after that. So most of the information that I read in my school and college days, it have become handy while writing the essays in the future. Okay, so whatever thing that will be writing in the future is basically an accumulation of what you've done in your school and college days. If you're a person who is interested in quizzing activity, go to quiz competition. There are the online quiz competitions which are happening, and you might be losing initially, but still join there. Join the quiz competition, join the debate club, join the discussion club, be part of the discussion. Sometimes you might not be able to say, but gradually you'll be having better confidence. ചിലപ്പോൾ ആദ്യം ക്വിസ് കോമ്പറ്റീഷൻ ഒക്കെ പോകുമ്പോഴത്തേക്ക് എനിക്ക് ഒട്ടും വിവരം ഇല്ലാന്നായിരിക്കും നിങ്ങൾക്ക് തോന്നാൻ പോകുന്നത്. ചിലപ്പോൾ ശരിയായിരിക്കും, ബട്ട് ഗ്രാജുവലി നിങ്ങളുടെ വിവരം കൂടും. After attending a lot of quiz competitions and all, your knowledge level will be increasing. And maybe you can start referring to atlas once in a while. If you're having free time, spare time, you can take out the atlas, go to North America, and try to find out the countries over there. What are the capital cities? What are the water bodies surrounding there? And even if you look onto India, what are the positions of the states? Where the northeastern, so what are the states that you have in the northeastern parts of the country? What are the neighboring states? What are the neighboring states of Madhya Pradesh? So have a clarity. Do you know one thing? There are people who have come to my geography class without even knowing that North America and South America were two different continents. അത് രണ്ട് കോണ്ടിനെന്റ് ആണെന്ന് അറിയാതെ ജോഗ്രഫി ക്ലാസ്സിന് വന്ന ആൾക്കാരുണ്ട്. അമേരിക്ക എന്ന് പറയുന്ന ഒറ്റ കോണ്ടിനെന്റ് ആണ്, അമേരിക്ക രാജ്യമാണെന്ന് മാത്രം ഇങ്ങനെ വന്ന ആൾക്കാരുണ്ട്. I'm talking about people who have qualified the graduation subject and still have come to the geography classes. So improve your knowledge about the things which are surrounding you. That itself will be a great foundation rather than talking about optional question paper, etc. during your school days itself. That is not the most important one. You improve your general knowledge, the things about surrounding you, the general awareness, get into discussion. Okay, for example, whenever a discussion is happening, for example, there is a discussion going on in Lakshadweep. What is happening in Lakshadweep? Is it good, bad? There'll be a lot of sides. Try to understand why it's a problem. What is the problem which is affecting? Why people are agitated? Or why the farmers are protesting? What's the reason? What's the problem in that particular bill? What is the scenario? So try to understand the things which are happening around you. And gradually, by reading into these kinds of articles, you will be able to take a stand. Initially, you might not be able to take a stand. Is it good? Is what is happening in Lakshadweep, is it good or bad? Maybe you might not be able to say. Is the farmers protest which is happening in Delhi, is it good or bad? You might not be able to say. But eventually, as you're reading through a lot of opinions, for example, you will be having one idea who says that farmer protest is good. There'll be one person who says that it is bad. So after going through a lot of this opinion, you will be able to create your own stand as to is it good or bad. So these kinds of things, it will be taking some time. So these are the things that you should be focusing on right now. And let me remind this point one more time that it is not about sacrificing your childhood, your teenage days, your college days, etc. All the fun stuff that you're supposed to be doing, you have to do. I mean, if you want to go play, I mean, right now there is COVID. I'm not talking about the COVID situation. സാറ് പറഞ്ഞു എന്ന് പറഞ്ഞ് പോയി കളിക്കാണെങ്കിൽ കൊറോണ വാങ്ങിച്ചുകൊണ്ട് തിരിച്ചു വരരുത്. ഞാൻ അതല്ല പറഞ്ഞത്. Okay, the COVID situation alla കഴിഞ്ഞ്. I'm not talking about COVID situation, but when the COVID situation is under control, whatever thing, hanging out with your friends, having your fun time with them, playing, okay, going to movies, etc. You can do all of this stuff. I scored. I was a university rank holder, and I used to go for all sorts of films. Colleges, ഞാൻ എല്ലാ സിനിമയ്ക്കും പോവായിരുന്നു. I used to hang around with my friends, go to places. We used to have our bike trips. I used to do all these kinds of things, and I still scored marks because I used to study before the examination. You should be knowing when to do what. Okay, exam മുമ്പ് അവസാനത്തെ 2 ദിവസം മുമ്പ് എന്നെ വിളിച്ചു കഴിഞ്ഞാൽ എന്നെ കിട്ടത്തില്ല. I will be sitting and studying right before the examination. അതിനു മുമ്പ് ഞാൻ ക്വിസ് കോമ്പറ്റീഷൻ പോകും, ഡിബേറ്റിന് പോകും, ഉള്ള എല്ലാത്തിനും പോകും, ടേബിൾ ടെന്നീസ് കളിക്കാൻ പോകും, ബാഡ്മിന്റൺ കളിക്കാൻ പോകും, മൂവീസിന് പോകും, എല്ലാത്തിനും പോകും. പക്ഷെ പഠിക്കേണ്ട സമയത്തില്ല. I know when to sit and study. So similarly, you should also be doing that only. It's not about sacrificing your teenage days, college days, etc. and all. The things that you're supposed to be doing, you can do that, but there should be a balance, and you know how to do it. You should be able to plan it. അത് കുറച്ച് കാലം കഴിയുമ്പോഴത്തേ എനിക്ക് ഐഡിയ ഉണ്ടാവും എങ്ങനെ ഇത് ചെയ്യണമെന്നൊക്കെ ഉള്ളത്. ഓക്കെ, പിന്നെ ചിലപ്പോൾ നിങ്ങളുടെ ഫ്രണ്ട്സ് നിങ്ങളെ ഫുള്ളി പുൾ ഡൗൺ ചെയ്യുന്ന ആൾക്കാരായിരിക്കും. യുവർ ഫ്രണ്ട് സർക്കിൾ ഈസ് ആൻ ഇമ്പോർട്ടന്റ് തിങ്. For example, if you're reading something and your friends are making fun of you all of a sudden, then maybe that friend circle is not great for you. Okay, so you should be having a balance. You should be trying to do something. It's not like you ഒരു കാര്യം ചെയ്യാതിരിക്കുന്ന ഫുൾ ടൈം കറങ്ങി നടക്കുന്ന ആൾക്കാരായി കഴിഞ്ഞാൽ ഒന്നും നടക്കത്തില്ല. So there should be balance. So that is the reason why the balance is extremely important. Find out that balance for you, and you will be able to do all these kinds of things. It is all possible, but with a systematic planning, and eventually you'll be having an idea. And since this is the last class, I would like to say a few more things. Don't settle for something less in life. This is not a philosophy. I'm not trying to say philosophy in my very last class, but just not this particular thing. Try to do a job, the thing that you will be getting into. The job will be one of the most defining aspect of yourself. So the job that you will be getting into, make sure that it is corresponding to the potential that you're having. And many people are not doing according to the potential. So they just want to, for example, some clerical examination, they just want to end up in a LD clerk or UD clerk. I'm not saying that these jobs are bad. Okay, these are government jobs. It will be having their own reputation. It's good. But what I'm trying to say is that you should not be trying to settle for something less if you feel like your potential is more than that. If you feel like you have the potential to clear something which is very big, if you have the ability to clear which is something pretty big, then you should be trying for that. And even if you're a person who is like pretty into, there are school students, but there could be people who might be in 20, 24, 25. There are few working people as well who are attending this session. It is never too late when it comes to studying and preparing for something like this. Okay, it's never too late. And this examination should not be an end in itself. പല ആൾക്കാർ ഇത് കിട്ടിയില്ലേ ജീവിതം തീർന്നു അങ്ങനെ രീതിയിൽ പ്രിപ്പയർ ചെയ്യാൻ വരുന്ന ആൾക്കാരുണ്ട്. Again, that is also bad, because the maturity that you should be developing is that ultimately, even if I'm not getting through, I will be ending up in some job which will be giving me the salary or the satisfaction which is corresponding to my potential. Exam should not be an end in itself. ഇത് ഇല്ലെങ്കിൽ ഒന്നും നടക്കില്ല, അങ്ങനെ ഒരു സാഹചര്യത്തിലോട്ടൊന്നും വരരുത്. Okay, നിങ്ങൾ maximum prepare ചെയ്യുക. How much of effort that you can put in, you put that. Okay, when the time is right for you. Maybe after coming out of the college or in the final years of college, maybe then you can start preparing. The moment you start coming out of the college, etc., that's the time that you have to change the gear. Okay, do you have anything to ask me? So if there is no questions that you have, okay, is there any minimum marks required for each GS paper? There is no minimum marks as such in the GS paper, But for the qualifying papers, you should be having the bare minimum mark. Okay, you should be getting something like 30% of the mark for qualifying paper. There is English qualifying paper as well as one regional language qualifying paper. These paper you have to get a bare minimum mark. Okay. So after completing UG is better to start the preparation. That will be a better strategy. Or if you're in a final year of college again, then also you can start with the basics of maybe like the basic NCERTs, etc. You can start picking up. Okay. Which newspaper is beneficial? You can read. Okay. You can read the Hindu newspaper if you're reading an English, or if you're looking for an English newspaper, then you can pick up the Hindu newspaper. That's one good newspaper that you can pick up. And you can pick up one Malayalam newspaper as well. So that is also good. Manorama might be the newspaper that most of you might be reading. You can do that. So there is a Malayalam daily you can refer to as well as an English daily. There is no problem. Okay. Ultimately, you should be switching. Ultimately, you should be switching to an English newspaper. Eventually, it will be taking some time. Okay. Are you going to write the civil services examination again? Is your attempts over? My attempts are not yet over. There are still 2 attempts left for me. I'll be writing not this year, maybe. I'm trying to take a break this year. So maybe in the future, maybe in 2022, I might be writing the exam again. That's what I'm planning to do. I have 2 more attempts left. But right now, the mental state of affairs, it's been, and after preparing for like 3-4 years and teaching lot of people, I was a bit drained, so I wanted some time off the preparation. That's the plan. And what about preparation after getting a job? That is also doable, but it is a very difficult thing to do. If you're a person who have the willpower to spend some 6 hours even after the job, then it is doable, because at least 6 hours of preparation a day is required when you are intensively preparing for civil services. At least, okay. So at least, okay, this much hours of preparation will be good. What is the benefit of foundation classes for us, the school children? This is the benefit you have right now. You know the basics of most of the stuff, and I've just told you as to what you can do. I've just said you. I've just taught you the basics. We, the faculties, have taught you the basics of most of the basic stuff. You need to understand the topics such as JER, the classification of ocean currents, etc. It is the same note that I give to even the 24, 25-year-old students as well. I'm giving you the same notes as well. So some basic aspects which will be discussed in the future, you are already having a clarity of that. Okay, so that's the scenario. And if you're a school student, you will be gradually getting idea of the structure of the examination, what option to take, etc. You don't need to bother about right now. Right now, focus on the stuff that you just mentioned, that I just mentioned: reading newspaper, reading in journal, debates, quiz competitions, etc. That's the scenario that you can do. Okay, so that was the scenario. How many options should we take? You have to take only one option only. You don't need to take 2 options. Back in the day, you have to take 2 options. Right now, only one option that you need to take. Whether you should write the civil service examination after undergraduation, I mean UG or PG, it's up to you. For example, I have straight away started my preparation after my BTech examination. So there were a few people who started who will be starting preparation after PG. Some people will be starting after their UG. It's up to that particular person only. For example, in Fortune, I have students who are like 21 years old, and I also have people who are almost like 34 years as well. They're giving their attempt towards the age of around. So that's the scenario. Okay. Will joining the foundation classes in the future will be of use? If you can, it's up to you. I mean, after like 4 years, you're still in college and you want to refresh the stuff, maybe you can do it. It's up to you. Okay. What was my rank during college days? I got an overall rank of 5th rank. 5th rank was my college rank. Kerala University Electrical Engineering, 5th rank. Last semester, and university topper. I was university first rank as well. Last semester. I completed BTech from TKN College of Engineering. Yeah. Oh, good. There are a few TKN people as well. But By taking international relations for undergraduation, is there any scope rather than as an optional subject for civil services? It can be done. I mean, by taking international relations as an UG subject, it can be taken as a optional in your civil services examination. It could be possible. How much attempts can a person make? General category 6 attempt up to. You can make up to 6 attempts. Another question. Is it possible to crack the exam in the very first attempt if you start preparation from first year of UG itself? I mean, you don't need to think about first year of UG itself. Just think about the people who started after graduation or in the final year of college. I will talk about just 3 of my students. Safna. So Safna, so she graduated from Marivanis College. She was a gold medalist in economics. After graduation only, she started prepare. In her very first attempt itself, she got a rank of 44. 44 or 45 was her rank in her very first attempt. She was my student at Fortune. Mridul Darshan, she was a graduate from CET College of Engineering, Trivandrum. She, in her very first attempt, got Indian Railway Traffic Service. She got a rank of something like 400 or 500, something like that. I don't remember the exact rank. Devi Nandana, it was her second attempt, but her first attempt, she gave it, I mean, along with her work, she was not preparing. She just gave her very first attempt and she was not preparing. So her second attempt was her first serious attempt and she got through. So it is possible to clear the examination in the very first attempt itself if you are having the right direction and you are preparing in an intensive manner. Okay. There is no something like best optional. Best optional അങ്ങനെ പറയാൻ പറ്റിയ item ഒന്നുമില്ല. Okay. So that's not the scenario. അങ്ങനെ ഒരു ഓപ്ഷൻ ഉണ്ടായിരുന്ന എല്ലാവരും അതല്ലേ എടുക്കുള്ളൂ. Okay. So that is not the scenario. Best book ഏതാണെന്നൊക്കെ ചോദിക്കുന്നുണ്ട്. Best book for geography ഞാൻ NCERT ടെക്സ്റ്റ് ബുക്കുകളെ പറ്റി ഫസ്റ്റ് ക്ലാസ്സിൽ പറഞ്ഞിട്ടുണ്ടായിരുന്നു. Class 11th and 12th NCERTs are the best ones that you can read for basics of geography. And I mean, not geography optional. Geography optional reward standard books are under. There are more than like 10 textbooks. There is no point in mentioning all these things right now. And if you do have a query, you can send a mail to me. My mail ID is nandanteaching@gmail.com. Or you can even send a query to me in my WhatsApp number. This is my WhatsApp number. I'll be replying to you as and when I'm getting the time. Okay. Okay. Appo enike samayam kittumbol njan odane chelappo reply cheyanam nirbandhamilla. But if you're sending a message, I will be getting back to you when I'm getting the time. Okay. Stress during the preparation, that's part and parcel of the preparation. Everyone has to face the stress. You have to do your own stuff like meditation, going for a jog, something like that you can do. So that was from my side. That was from geography. And so if you are in the future, if you are preparing, if you're coming to Fortune, if I'm still as a faculty over there, we can meet again. Okay. So I wish you all the very best, whatever endeavors that you're doing in, whether it's civil services or whatever thing in your school, college, academic, whatever thing that you're ending up. I wish all the very best for you, and I hope good things will be happening for you. Okay, so that's it from my side. Thank you, everyone. Thank you.